Welcome to the lounge, number 132. It's the big college football preview. We're breaking it into 2 weeks so we don't burst at the goddamn seams. Got the Big Ten this week, followed by the Pac-12, followed by Clemson. Charlie Hildebrand, Marcus Traxler, Nathan Stacken, and wife joining us here on the lounge, breaking it all down. Mr. Schottenkirk, he has given me a...
Yeah.
Who does she like? Who does she like in the Atlantic?
Who do you like in the Atlantic?
The Atlantic?
Pick Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech.
Say NC State.
The big problem is
They're in the Coastal.
Virginia Tech's in the Coastal. So honestly, to God, Stacken also has trivia questions later on in the program. And if one of them is actually which teams are in the Atlantic and which teams are in the Coastal, that'd be a pretty tough fucking question, I would think.
Well, we'll pick Clemson for that. She meant the Atlantic Coast Conference, so
good enough.
the whole ACC. She likes about Tech.
I'm sure she's a big fan. You look at the Big Ten, and they kind of switched up the conferences for a year, and they said, well, it doesn't make any sense, so let's make some sense here. Let's make it East and West, like normal goddamn people would do. With the ACC, you're looking at, there really is no rhyme or reason. You got two Carolina teams in one. You got the other two Carolina teams in the other. You got Miami in the Coastal. You got Boston College up north in the Atlantic. You got Florida State in the other one. So it's really just a mishmash of junk in there. So I don't know how the hell you fix that. Schottenkirk's giving me... Yes.
If you remember, when they started the divisions, one of the big things that they wanted to do is they wanted to keep Miami and Florida State separate. And I don't think they've ever played in the championship game against each other, so it's all kind of been a waste.
They never have, and then the Big Ten tried the same thing for a little while with Michigan and Ohio State, and seems like whatever conferences try to do that, it doesn't work out that way.
No. Geography seems to work well and seems to even things out and seems to make sense. Schottenkirk has his picks via Telegraph, so we'll mention those when necessary.
Western Union Telegraph.
He did. I got a knock on the door here late last night around midnight, which was surprising. Conference realignment, and this is pretty much done with. Some of the notables, Nebraska to the Big Ten. TCU now makes the biggest jump up to the Big 12. Utah has done fairly decent in the Pac-12. Colorado is one of the worst teams going in the Pac-12. Then you had Missouri and A&M be very successful in the SEC. Now that conference realignment's pretty much over for the time being, and we've had some movement. Charlie, does it say more about the teams? Do we think differently about those teams that moved or those conferences, how good or bad they are, considering how these teams have done in these different conferences?
Some of them I do. I mean, I don't think Nebraska is about the same in the Big Ten as they were in the Big 12. Colorado's not dramatically different their last 3 or 4 years in the Big 12 as they are in the Pac-12, but I don't think anyone thought Texas A&M or Missouri was going to be as successful in the SEC. Like I remember, people thought Missouri would never have a winning record in the SEC, and Texas A&M certainly didn't set the world on fire their last few years in the Big 12, and it was like, well, once every 2 or 3 years they might go 8-4, and then in their very first season, I think they went 11-2, and Manziel won the Heisman Trophy, and they have upgraded a lot. And like you said, I think TCU has certainly had the biggest jump, where they went from a team that was good that occasionally makes a BCS game to now a team that could potentially make the national title because they're in a Power 5 conference.
Marcus, any of those conferences, anything change with you? Your team average teams from the Big 12 come in and do pretty well in the SEC.
Yeah, it was surprising. I mean, I don't think anybody really predicted that. I think I trashed those two teams just like everybody else did when they changed leagues, and it's ended up working out well. It helps that Missouri's in the right division in the SEC where you can do a little damage, and Texas A&M, I think they were always the team of the two that had the best chance of succeeding, if only because they're in Texas and there's fertile recruiting ground there. I think I look at the Big Ten because I'm a Big Ten guy, and I really liked when they brought in Nebraska, and I still do. But to me, they really kind of ruined it with the Rutgers and the Maryland thing. To me, that sort of cancels out the goodwill that they built up from Nebraska. I mean, this is a conference that's been around for 100 and some years. When they brought in Penn State, it made a lot of sense, even though at that time there were some people who thought they were stretching too far east. Now you bring in Rutgers and Maryland, who really have no geographic connection other than you want TVs in Washington, D.C. and New York to be tuned to the Big Ten network. That's going to leave a sour taste in my mouth. And I also think a team that has the potential to come out of this looking very well is BYU, because they're going to have this independent status now. They're going to be similar to Notre Dame in that pretty much every game will be on national TV. You're no longer in the WAC or the Mountain West, whatever conference they were in. So I think it's a benefit for them. And I think if you're I've wanted to talk about this on the show, and maybe today's not the day to do that, but I think people saying Notre Dame needs to join a conference is the most ridiculous. I don't understand why they're saying that. It seems like Notre Dame, of all the teams in college football, is in a position of power. There's no incentive, I think, for them to join a league, considering that they can still make the playoff at this stage, unless they are boxed out, and I guess we'd have to wait for the day for that to happen. But to me, a lot of coaches saying Notre Dame should join a league. I don't see any reason why they should.
I would agree with that. I mean, half their schedule is basically ACC teams, so that's probably as close as they're going to get.
Look at their schedule. Look at their schedule in comparison to the other teams. Compare them to any team in the Big 12. Their schedule's better. You got Texas, Georgia Tech, Clemson, USC. Temple's not a bad team this year. They're going to be at Stanford. I think Pitt will be decent. That's a lot better than a lot of teams can say.
When you do join a conference, there's a couple of really good teams, and I look at the Big Ten, and Michigan State's really good, and Ohio State's really good, and Wisconsin's always really good. Other than that, you got a couple teams there like in Nebraska in that second tier, but you got a lot of bad teams like your Purdue's and your Illinois' and your Indiana's and your Rutgers. So every team has those cupcakes on the schedule, but it's nice that Notre Dame can cherry pick, and they've got a lot of decent. Like Texas isn't very good, but they're a pretty good team. 6-7 win team, and all those other teams that you mentioned. I'd much rather play those teams than the garbage like Purdue and Illinois. So
I know that they're going to, and I think maybe I said this on the show a while back, but Notre Dame should have joined the conference 8 years ago, but now it's too late for that. I mean, there's no incentive for them to join a league, and if they do join the ACC, that would be where they would go. A lot of the teams they're going to play are going to be in bowls. I know you only need 6 wins to make a bowl, but they're going to be in bowls. And I just don't see why now would be the time for them to get into a conference when they're at the height of their powers. If they can, I imagine that NBC will give them the money for the television contract for as long as Notre Dame is on this planet.
We saw 2 one-loss teams miss out in Baylor and TCU last year. I would say it's fairly easy to say that if Notre Dame, anytime they lose only 1 game in the season, they're going to be in that playoff. Every time.
I think that. I really do. I think their schedule will always be good enough. It will always be better than at least one team that they might be tied with. And I don't care what anybody says. The national cachet, national profile of Notre Dame will matter. And I think I can't see them being boxed out. I just can't. That's come up a couple times with coaches and saying, well, they're not in a conference, so they should be behind all these other teams. I just don't think that's the case.
And we've only had 1 year of the playoffs so far, so we don't have a whole lot of examples. But I would imagine with Notre Dame and all the other Power 5 conference champs, that more often than not, if you only lose 1 game, or fewer obviously, you're almost certainly going to get in. And I mean, I don't know how it's going to be every year, but I would imagine there aren't going to be a whole lot of years where every team that wins the conference or wins their conference only has 1 loss. I would imagine there's going to be a lot where someone has 3 losses, and there's going to be a whole lot where somebody has 2 losses, and they just say, well, yeah, they were plenty good, but they lost 2 games, and these 2 went undefeated, and USC had 1 loss, and Notre Dame had 1 loss, and it'll be cut and dry at times.
Stacking, despite getting trounced there a couple of years ago by Alabama, how much did that help nationally? Because Notre Dame hasn't been a real national contender for a while. How much did that one season help them? As Marcus said, they kind of got some swagger. People think they're going to be good this year. Bringing some of that back to Notre Dame, since it had been a while since they were a national title type team.
I think the deeper that you play into the season, of course, everyone's good. I mean, Notre Dame is a big-time name in college football and college sports. Everyone knows, Touchdown Jesus and the Golden Dome and everything like that. So the longer that you play in there, the deeper, the more meaningful games you're going to play. I think it's going to bring more people, eyeballs to the television set. It's going to help Notre Dame in recruiting in terms of, obviously, the success that they've had and that Brian Kelly's had there. But I just think overall, if they're playing better, it's better for NBC because more eyeballs will be tuned in. They'll keep the television contracts, and they're going to keep trying to get those good teams on their schedule, like Texas this year. Of course, they have all the ACC teams that they play, but you keep your standard rivals in USC. As long as Notre Dame is still good, those rivalries and those other games mean something.
We'll talk about the Big 12 next week, but Marcus brought up BYU. It seems like the Big 12 could use 2 more teams, and it seems like BYU and Boise State would be perfect for football for that conference.
Well, they've already blown to hell their geography with West Virginia, so I say why not? Boise State, not trash at basketball anymore, so that's not a terrible idea. And BYU, every once in a while, puts together a decent basketball team as well. So I'm somewhat
trash at basketball.
They're awesome.
Yes, I am somewhat supportive of that measure, but I think BYU's gotten a taste of the Notre Dame apple, and they're going to try to stay independent as long as they can.
Starting now with the Big 10. National champions, Ohio State. I still believe they should not have made the playoff over my Horned Frog squad. But when you get in, you beat Alabama, and you beat Oregon. So the first year of the playoff, the fourth and final team in the playoff gets in and wins. A surprising team who had an awful loss versus Stacken's Vatech squad at home. Quarterbacks be damned. That was the worst loss. I'd like to go back and see when the last time a national championship team had a loss worse than that. So that was my big argument against. People did not like the Big Ten last year. They had a lot of early losses where people said this conference is awful. Mr. Hildebrand, how much did that Ohio State win matter as far as saying the Big Ten is back? Look at us now.
I think I said it at the time, and the Ohio State 2 playoff wins were certainly the 2 biggest. But I think the other 2 things that helped out a lot were Michigan State coming back to beat a pretty good Baylor team, and Wisconsin finding a way to scrap out a weird win over an Auburn team that didn't have a great record, but everyone thought, Auburn was going to blow Wisconsin off the field. And I think those 4 results, the 2 Ohio State ones and Michigan State and Wisconsin, helped them the most.
You mentioned those other 2 bowl wins. That was big as well. I think they'd won 2 bowl games each of the previous 2 years. I think they were 4-5, 5-4 in bowl games last year, a decent record. I look at this schedule as I do with a lot of Big Ten teams, and Ohio State similar to last year. This is a dog shit of a schedule. At Virginia Tech, we'll see what happens there on a Monday night. It's either the Monday nights or it's the Thursday nights, Mr. Stacking. Maybe we got another upset in the making here. But other than this Virginia Tech game and the Michigan State game at the end of November, I don't see any reason why they're not 3 touchdown favorites at least against every single team on that schedule. Hawaii, Northern Illinois, Western Michigan, Maryland, Rutgers, Minnesota, Illinois, Penn State, Indiana. That's the biggest dog shit of a schedule I've seen this side of Flandria. Mr. Marcus Traxler, agree or disagree with this assessment?
I completely agree. I look at the span between Virginia Tech and Michigan State, weeks 1 and that'd be week 12, so you've got 10 or 11 games there where they play pretty much nobody. They have 3 road games in that span. Those games are at Indiana, at Rutgers, and at Illinois. I do not see them being challenged by any of the teams on that schedule in that span. So I think Ohio State will be undefeated at season's end.
I wouldn't go as far as saying dog shit. I think there's a few teams that could. I think either one. I wouldn't go any kind of feces. I would maybe go for a little overdue milk that doesn't taste great.
Good.
Just because I think Michigan State or Penn State, Michigan or Penn State, I would throw in. I don't think that they'll lose either of those, but I think they could both at least make the game ugly and keep it close for a while. And then I just wanted to throw in one other. Now, I don't think they're going to lose this game, but there was a situation that Stacken's Virginia Tech team was in a few years ago, and Ohio State could find themselves in a similar situation that they play the Monday night, which is, I believe, the 7th of September, the first weekend of the year. Yep. And they got to turn around and they got to play Hawaii the very next Saturday on a short week when Hawaii will have 8 days to prepare for them. I don't think Ohio State will lose that game, but it would not surprise me if Ohio State kind of wins ugly against Virginia Tech and then really doesn't look good against a Hawaii team that has a lot more time to prepare in week 2. And then people say, wow, I don't know if Ohio State's the greatest team ever, and then they proceed to win their next 4 games by 50 points.
I believe that was James Madison, too, that Virginia Tech lost to, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, when you're going on a short week and the other team gets extra time to prepare, when you only get like 4 days or 3 or 4 days between games in college, that's rough.
Remember the travel factor, though. Hawaii has to travel 17,000 miles from Hawaii to Columbus.
That's why they get the extra couple days, though. They play their first game on a Thursday, I think, so they get a whole extra couple travel days.
They've already played their first game, Hawaii. The time difference is such, they are 12 days ahead of us. So, and interesting, they're not going to go east to west. They're going to actually go from the west to the east. Based on the jet stream, they've decided to do Stacken's deal where they travel 8,000 miles instead of the normal 5,000.
And remember, El Nino this year, it's a bigger factor, so this could play a huge factor in Hawaii's season and their flight plans.
Despite the temperatures...
Considering that Hawaii, every road game they have to fly to the mainland, I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. Because there are no other teams in Hawaii that they play.
It's time for BYU Hawaii to get going here. And it's time for Chaminade to get that junior varsity squad up to snuff here. And join, is there a spot in the Northern Sun? Can we get something going here?
Can we get Northern Sun? I think so, yeah.
When you think of the Sun, what do you think of? You think of Hawaii.
I think of the Rainbow Warriors.
Yeah. And looking at that road schedule, Indiana, I think Rutgers too, and Illinois, Jesus Christ. Talk about a challenge there. My God.
If I had to pick out one game, and Charlie mentioned it, I would say Penn State at home. I believe last year that was an overtime win for Ohio State, and I would guess that by the middle of the season, Christian Hackenberg will have erased his doubts.
Do not tempt me with this man.
Number 1 overall prospect, according
to... Quarterback named Christian. Do not push my buttons when it comes to this guy. Do not. Awful.
Did you want to ponder that a little bit?
He's not awful.
He's not awful, but he's not good.
He'll have a good season. He'll have a good season. I'm not saying he's a good pro prospect because I don't necessarily think he is.
I look forward to him being a top 5, top 10 pick to some shitty ass team like Buffalo and being awful.
Yep.
I do agree with Marcus and Charlie, though, that the only game that I think between Virginia Tech and Michigan State that'll give Ohio State trouble is Penn State. I think James Franklin's got the community going. He's been getting some good recruits in.
It doesn't matter if he has a community going.
No, I know that.
Get it going here. Get to the food shelves. Get those food shelves full for the winter.
I'm saying that Penn State seems to have that aura back to them a little bit that they had during the Big 12 years. I think it's coming. I think they will give Ohio State a big run for their money, and ultimately will lose, though.
And then I want to pull out one more quick stacking reference also, is that I'm not saying this is going to happen. I think there's a good chance that Michigan upsets either Michigan State or Ohio State, though.
It's at Michigan this year.
Drink your milk,
I think
kids.
it's more likely to happen with Michigan State than Ohio State.
Wear your khakis and tuck your jerseys in.
That's right. Speaking of Michigan State, Charlie, how did they get so good all of a sudden?
Well, I guess if you get the right coaches and you just bring in the right recruits every year and stick with what you know how to do, I mean, I guess that works. I mean, they're to the point now, I think they've won 11 games, 4 out of the last 5 years. And they had 1 year, I think in 2012, they went 7-6, where like all their losses were by a touchdown or less, and they could have won. So they've been pretty good recently. They lose some guys on defense, and they lose most of their skill guys on offense. But with Connor Cook back and maybe the best line in the Big Ten, I think Ohio State's probably better. But 4 out of 5 starters on their offensive line back, and I think they'll be good. I think losing Pat Narduzzi, their defensive coordinator, is also going to be problematic. I think if they were in a different division where Ohio State wasn't in it, they would have a better chance at winning.
One thing that I think is interesting is that I think there's a lot of teams in college football that their identity confused, if you will, where they try to do a lot of different things, or they aren't really sure of what they're doing. I don't think there's any question of the identity of Michigan State. They built this program on defense. They win these big games, almost consistently, and they're going to have a good running back. They're going to have a good quarterback. We talk about LSU and Alabama never having a good quarterback. Michigan State always has a good quarterback, and so I think that they've set themselves up in a way that they're going to do certain things right, and they're going to execute. Running, playing defense. That's just kind of going to be the basis of their team. They're not going to be very flashy, but they're going to be pretty consistent. It's hard to argue with the results that they've produced.
Not exactly one of my favorite teams to watch. Not really an enjoyable football team to watch, but they get it done nonetheless. If you like your defense, you go hard on Michigan State. Mr. Stack, and may I tempt you with a comparison between the Big Ten and the ACC at the top?
In terms of the best conference, or just in like a tie for second behind the SEC?
In terms of their top teams.
The Big Ten's better than the ACC.
Well, here's what I got for you. Ohio State and Florida State. Those over the past couple years, those would be the top 2 teams.
Yeah.
Clearly the best teams. Not a lot underneath them. The second best teams would be Michigan State and Clemson, teams that always seem to slip up a game or 2 each year. Not quite national title contenders at their best, but they get to a BCS Bowl and they win. Then third, you got Wisconsin. You always got to be careful of them. I'd compare them to a Gatech or a Vatech. Would you agree with this assessment? ACC seems to be 3 teams at the top. Seems to be plenty of space between those 3 teams. Everybody else, not a factor.
I could see that. I guess I would say that the ACC has some better teams, like with Louisville and Pittsburgh. North Carolina had some good years when they were academically cheating.
Oh, we'll get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here.
You have Miami. I would say, and maybe it's because the ACC has more teams, but I would say that they have better football than the Big Ten. But I would argue, I guess, that at least looking into it this year, the Big Ten has the better teams at the top than the ACC does.
For all that North Carolina cheated, they really didn't do a good job of capitalizing on it to be better than they were.
If you're going to cheat, if like USC, you're going to pay for some houses and cars, you better get a good player, you better win a national title.
You at least better make the most of it.
Because the penalties never fit the crime. I'm sure USC would say, yeah, take a couple scholarships away. We'll still win 8-9 games a year, and we'll win a couple national titles on our way to that. That'd be more than worth the penalty right there.
First in flight, 48th in education. So there you go.
Good job, North Carolina.
Are you talking about South Dakota?
No.
Not 48th in population and first in teacher pay. South Dakota. Michigan, they got Jim Harbaugh, much ballied about, much rumored.
Can I just shoot to hell Stacken's comment there about the ACC being better than the Big Ten historically?
No, I'm not saying historically. I'm saying this year.
You're saying the ACC is better than the Big Ten this year?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Well,
okay,
yeah,
I believe what Stacken said was he thinks the Big Ten with Ohio State and Michigan State, they're top of the ACC. They're better than the top of the ACC, but the ACC in the middle may have better teams with Pittsburgh and whatever else he mentioned.
Miami.
Louisville,
Miami, your 5-7 Miami squad. Shit like that.
I would say they're very close. I may give an edge to the Big Ten, if only because I think Michigan's going to be pretty good this year. Penn State will be good. Wisconsin will be good. Iowa you want to talk about cake schedules? Iowa's got a cake schedule that I expect them to win games. Nebraska, Minnesota will have I think a good showing. So I would say that I would still take the Big Ten, but the ACC is certainly an entertaining brand of football. Those 6-3 overtime wins. So,
let's break out an old school thing here. True or false? True or false? Ohio State and Michigan State, they meet November 21st. They will both be undefeated when that game happens. So,
I don't have my sheet of paper here.
Oh shit.
Who would you say? Penn
False.
State?
Or Michigan State and Ohio State are undefeated when they play. Charlie says no.
I say false. I think Ohio State will probably be undefeated. I don't think Michigan State will be. I think this is the year where Michigan State will probably be 10-2, and they will be plenty good, but just will lose to somebody because in college football, more than any other sport, it seems like, just because you're better than another team doesn't necessarily you're going to beat them in a week in, week out thing. I think Michigan State's more likely to lose to Penn State or Michigan State than Ohio State would be.
The big one, obviously, is September 12th for Michigan State against Oregon. Michigan could trip them up a little bit there in October, but otherwise, Michigan State's got a really easy, what I term would be a relatively easy schedule going in. So I put the odds at both teams being undefeated at 60-40.
60-40, you're in favor.
But the question is true or false.
So you would say true.
I would say I'd lean more towards true.
Okay. What does Marcus think?
I think it'll be true. I look at the game. I look at Oregon, and I look at Michigan, and at Nebraska as challenging games. I think Michigan State is better than all three of those teams. I think they'll be undefeated when they play at Ohio State.
How about this then for the two that said true? Ohio State and Michigan State will be the top two teams in the country when this game occurs. A 1 versus 2 matchup. Ohio State, they're going to start 1. If they don't lose, they're not moving from 1. Michigan State, can they get up to the number 2 spot?
They could be. If they're undefeated in November, they might be.
How about it, man?
I think there's a good. I would say there's a good chance that's the case.
I'll say no.
So you would say a 10-0 Michigan State team would not be the
no.
2 team.
I would put either TCU or Baylor at 2.
Okay, very good. Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, the pants, the shirt, the milk, trying to resurrect the program. Brady Hoke had a good start, had a poor finish. Rich Rodriguez now tearing it up in Arizona. Harbaugh doesn't seem to stay at anywhere more than 4 or 5 years or so. Charlie, would you expect this to be maybe a long-term, 10-year sort of thing, depending on success? Can he do something here to challenge Ohio State?
I think that he'll probably be at Michigan for 5 or 6 years, and by year 3 they will be as successful as the Michigan teams of the 80s and 90s, competing for conference and national titles, and then by year, I don't think they'll ever win a national title with him, but then by year 5 or 6 or so, he's just going to get that itch to go back to the NFL like Pete Carroll had, and I think that's what he'll do.
Our friend Charlie has been working on a very entertaining blog post about how coaches in the Power 5 conferences will be fired. A lot of them are satirical and humorous. And I don't remember what it was for Harbaugh, but whatever we have written down, that will be what happens in the next 10 years to get him kicked out.
I believe that one, he would be fired for getting too chummy with Colin Cowherd and not paying enough attention to football, or
That's right.
for yelling at a Michigan administrator for not going shirtless during the Ohio State game in late November.
Mr. Stack.
Or not enough pleats in his pants.
Is anybody going to get fired over a 2% milk situation here?
I can see it.
You got to go chocolate all the way.
Because chocolate milk's apparently this great elixir, the fountain of youth, apparently. Who the hell knew this all of a sudden? Chocolate milk after practice. I call bullshit, but whatever.
Hey, I drink muscle milk every time. I always drink chocolate after my workouts. Good. So, hey, I mean, these results, they don't lie.
They don't lie. I don't like chocolate milk. I do not. Root beer, add root beer and chocolate milk to my list of things that I do not like.
How do you not like A&W or 1919?
Because it don't taste good. That's why. I don't like
Dad's root beer?
I don't like the taste of the root beer.
Dad's famous root beer, that's delicious.
What if instead of just regular root beer, we're talking about a root beer float with the ice cream in there?
I can't be doing that. No. Similar to the...
This is a shame.
It's a disaster. Similar to the sour taste that something left in Traxler's mouth a half hour ago, doing with something conference related. The root beer leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So that's how that goes. Who the hell here is in charge of the jerseys for the lounge? Anybody in charge of the jersey sizes? Equipment manager who? Stacking, you raise your hand.
Stacking, yeah.
Can we get Ezekiel Elliott a goddamn jersey that fits? Something that goes past his nipples.
I tried, but he wanted to show off that stomach for all the ladies out there. Show that six-pack of abs, and I don't think it's going to work to get him in anything any bigger. He likes the smaller size. No one can catch him anyway to tackle him. I said, well, you don't want anything hurting your stomach. He said, I'm not going to get tackled all this year. I'll just run out of bounds if that happens. So he's not worried about taking any wear and tear on the old body.
He just watched all those ESPN 30 for 30s on the late 80s and early 90s college football teams and was like, hey, I'm just going to dress how those guys dressed.
They were good. That makes sense. May as well.
I miss the tearaway jerseys. The jerseys that were like plastic bags and just disintegrated when anybody tried to tackle them.
JT,
it'd be fun. I would like them to go back just so you could see running backs that get it 25 times a game, where they finish with like the jersey that there's nothing left of it at the end of the game. It's like, oh yeah, there's that little thing around his neck and this little piece on the side, and then there's not a whole lot else there. We can see his shoulder pads.
JT Barrett, the quarterback.
Yep.
I think it's interesting. I think JT Barrett will win it, and I think if they want to finish 12-0, JT Barrett's their best bet. I think if they want to go undefeated and be 15-0 and win the national title, I think Cardale Jones would be better for that, but they could also go 10-2 with Cardale Jones starting, because I think Cardale's more likely to go 17 of 39 with 3 interceptions, where I don't think Barrett would do that. But at the same time, I don't think it's a coincidence that with his cannon for a deep arm, that Ezekiel Elliott's 3 best games were the 3 games that Cardale Jones started also.
I would say, yeah, that would...
It's they call him 12. That's why they call him 12 gauge. Just
is that why?
away.
Okay, I think that name may change later on.
You think so, huh?
Looking at the schedule, there was a Kansas. I think Kansas-Rutgers was a game later in the year that was my pick for worst game of the year. But then I came upon a Indiana at Wake Forest game on the 26th of September. I cannot think of a worse game than this. This is the worst thing of all time. Indiana at Wake Forest, Stacking.
Well, they're both in the same week, too, so you can watch them on the same day.
Damn.
I think both of them will be brought to you by Lysol, the Lysol toilet bowls.
Holy shit! This is as bad as I can ever remember. Indiana and Wake Forest.
Doesn't Kohler build toilets?
May as well. Wasn't there something, Charlie, we were doing in the office or something where we wanted to get like a little tournament going, like the 4 worst teams, a bowl game for them to decide who is the worst goddamn team?
Yeah, I forgot about that, but I remember now. And what I thought was fun about it, at least, was that if you win, you're don't done. Advance. It's if you lose, you advance to the next round to find out who truly is the worst team.
You want to win so you can get out of the tournament.
Yeah.
Well, you want to lose so you can win the tournament.
Or that.
Lose to win the thing. Also mentioned Christian Hackenberg, Penn State. I got Penn State down for 9-3. I don't know. Traxer and Schottenkirk are picking every game here. I don't know if you've done this or what you've done to tabulate things here. I do have Ohio State going undefeated. I have Michigan State losing 1 game to Ohio State. Penn State, 3 conference losses overall and on the season. Michigan State 8-4, 5-3. Anybody on the East have anything drastically different than that?
I didn't hear. What'd you say for Michigan?
8-4, 5-3 in the conference.
I didn't go through and specifically pick them, but I would basically have them about the same. I think Michigan State will go 10-2 instead of 11-1, but that would be the only notable difference.
So Michigan State would lose in conference there somewhere to
either to Oregon, or they would lose to Michigan or Penn State or Nebraska.
Okay.
I have Penn State at 8-4. I have them losing at Maryland, and that makes Maryland bowl eligible.
Whoa,
this is one of those games that Maryland. This is only on like psyche alone. Maryland thinks this is a rivalry. Penn State doesn't, and Maryland will be ready to play. It's at College Park, and I think Maryland will be 6-6, and they'll make a bowl because of it. Michigan, I have them at 8-4, and I have them losing the opener at Utah. I went back and forth on. I mean, how do you think Michigan comes out of the gates with Jim Harbaugh? And Utah is a very good ball club, so I have Michigan losing that game. But 8-4 overall for the season, and Ohio State undefeated. I have Michigan State 11-1, their only loss at Ohio State, and that basically does it for the Big Ten East. I have Butgers at 3-9, and I have Indiana at 3-9 as well. So
Indiana's going to really miss Tevin Coleman.
Yes, they are.
And I think Michigan with Jim Harbaugh, I think certainly Michigan has more talent than the Stanford team that he inherited. And I think Michigan will, not stylistically, because I don't think they'll be great on offense, and I think they'll have a pretty good defense. But I think they'll be a lot like that Toby Gerhart Stanford team, where there will be weeks where you'll think, wow, this team looks really good. And then they will randomly lose to Indiana or Maryland or somebody like that. And you'll think, wow, what is going on? And then, like you guys said, finish like 8-4 and be sort of okay, but building for the future.
And for the record, because I am picking every game for the season, I have Rutgers beating Kansas, and I have Wake Forest beating Indiana. That's that.
I'm glad you have Wake Forest win. I feel like they need some things every once in a while. They don't get a whole lot sports-wise anymore.
Spoiler alert for the ACC preview. I have Wake Forest winning 2 games, 1 against Indiana and 1 against Elon in the opener, and that will be it for Wake Forest this season.
I got them winning 1 more non-conference game. I don't know what the hell's going on, but
Wake Forest?
Whatever their schedule is, I had them winning. I had them going 3-1 in the non-conference.
Are you really picking? Are you picking the whole season too?
Just these power conference games. I went through the list and kind of said, yeah, I think they'll win this, lose that, come up with some sort of a number here. So
sure.
I think Michigan is going to lose. I think 5 games this year.
5 games.
I think they could lose to BYU. I totally can see Maryland beating them. They'll lose to Michigan State. They will lose to Minnesota, and they will lose to Ohio State or Penn State. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a rough year for Jim Harbaugh. First year, they'll get him bowl eligible, but I do see them losing about 5 games.
I think that Michigan-Minnesota game is going to be more interesting this year than it was last year.
I agree.
Although last year, I think that was the one where there was the concussion thing, so
Yes.
it will probably not have as many stories after the game's over, but I think that'll probably be a pretty interesting game.
There's a new book that's out about kind of the downfall of Michigan last year, and they specifically look into the aftermath of this Minnesota game and how poorly it was handled by the Michigan administration, and I will send that to you folks later. A good excerpt from that book. I didn't want to boast about it, but I do have Michigan losing at Minnesota.
Nice.
That is shit.
Let's just get into it. Let's just get into it.
Big Ten West, man. Minnesota, I got them at 4-8, 2-6 in the conference.
Oh man!
You're high as a kite.
Break it down, man.
Wait, just so what's most important to me? So you've got Nebraska beating Minnesota or no?
Goddamn right.
Okay, then I'm okay with that.
Games. 2 conference games. I was very hopeful they'd lose each of their last 4 last year. I think they won one of their last 4. I think they won one of them. Jerry Kill signed through 18, contract extension 1 year through 19. Obviously, I hate the NFL contracts. College coaches' contracts, very similar to that. Let's extend the guy to 2032 for no fucking reason because he went 8-4. Back-to-back under 500 seasons. I say, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have signed this guy for 3 more years. Break down this schedule. Going to get their asses handed to them to TCU. After that, what do we see?
I don't think they're going to get their butts handed to them by TCU. I think
really?
They'll probably lose.
You want to go? Let me just interrupt and say we had a thing at TCU in Texas last year. I said Texas is a shit team.
Yeah.
Watch out, TCU boys. TCU, look out. Let's get the fucking hat. Where's my hat? I don't got a lot.
Get it out.
Just so
Get
you
the hat out.
You said you didn't like Christian Hackenberg.
Awful.
Because of Christian Ponder. But you do like Texas Christian though.
I do like Texas Christian. I'm obviously.
How do you reconcile that?
I went to church once for a funeral, so I really enjoyed that. Let's get this going here. So and they got purple. I mean, they got purple. If you're wearing purple or orange, probably going to be a fan of you. So.
My a quick aside here. I'm home because I got a chance to see my brother play football yesterday, and their school acronym is TCU, and their colors are blue and silver. And there was a guy sitting in the home section, and he had a TCU hat, but it was purple with the it was a Horned Frogs hat, and it just said TCU on the front, purple. I liked it because I think he just went and found a hat that said TCU and called it good. So
good enough for me.
Nice job by that guy. Breaking it, I honestly think the Gophers will lose by like 10, maybe 14. I don't think that's an ass kicking.
Are they going to score 10 or 14 points?
Yes.
Yeah, why not? The
why
game's
not?
at home.
Because their offense is...
No, come on.
What are running back? What do they got for running back here?
They got Berkeley Edwards, who isn't terrible. They've got some other warm bodies that will be able to run the rock.
Quarterback, give me a guy again. I'm putting them on the clock. 1,000 yards by harvest time. Let's get it done.
They still have Mitch Leidner, and they're basically
awful.
They're not planning on changing him out. But let's talk in week 3 after they squeaked by Kent State 34-28.
Ooh.
I have. You're gonna hate this, but I'm doing it anyway. I have the Gophers at 9-3, and
that's too. You know that's too much.
It is. I'll freely admit it's optimistic.
No shit.
So you've got them losing to TCU and Ohio State, I'm assuming.
And then I have them losing to Wisconsin at the end of the year because they can't beat Wisconsin. I don't. Do you have what David had for the Gophers? I think maybe 7-5.
Nope, I did not have his.
Okay. I think he said he had them. He said it was more likely that they start 0-2 because they have to go to Colorado State.
That's a tough one.
Then they have Kent State, Ohio. Those should be wins. So 2-2 if that's the way you look at that. Northwestern and Purdue. I acknowledge that Northwestern will be better this year. I don't think Purdue will be that great. If the Gophers want to get anything done this year, they need to win both those games. Then they have Nebraska at home. I think they can win that game. I already said they were going to beat Michigan. I freely admit that last year they had a lot of kind of horseshoe up their butt wins. But I think that this is a team. Their defense is as good as I can remember, and it should be better than it was last year. And I'm optimistic that they'll form a passing game. I mean, for as successful as they were last year, and they didn't throw the ball that well, and they had Max Williams, I'm hopeful that it will be better this year.
I give them the Purdue game on the road, and I give them Illinois at home.
Yeah. I kind of played around with the Iowa game because that's a night game. I could definitely see them losing that game, but I gave them it because that's really the one game on the schedule where I thought maybe that would be the upset. So
I think I have them.
I think they finished 8-4 with them losing to Iowa.
So lose to Iowa, Ohio State, TCU, and Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can beat. I think they'll beat Wisconsin this year. I think they.
Shit, house mouse, son, come on.
This is the. I think that's the hardest part about doing this year is I have no idea how good Wisconsin will be.
They're going to be worse than last year.
Well, here's the problem. Wisconsin, another team with a poor schedule after they play Alabama. I have them at 10-2 this season, and I think it's a very soft 10-2.
Yeah, since we're talking about Wisconsin, I think Wisconsin is like an 8-4, 7-5 team with an 11-1 schedule, which is a line I'll use for someone else later in the show. But if Wisconsin had the talent of like
years past
Arizona or Arizona State, they would probably be 11-1. And I just don't think. I mean, I don't think Wisconsin's awful. I think I've still got them winning the West basically because of their schedule, but they've got Paul Chryst, who's never won more than 6 games in the regular season. They lose Melvin Gordon and 3 starters on their offensive line, 2 of which were first-team all-conference. They averaged over 300 yards rushing and 7 yards per carry last year. I think that'll go way down, and they'll still run the ball well, but I don't think they're going to be running for 300 yards against conference opponents regularly. And on defense, They lose 3 guys in their front 7, which was the strength of their team defensively. And I think they're going to win the West just because I think they can split with Nebraska and Minnesota. And I think they're going to get shit pounded by Alabama in what will be the grossest Week 1 game. That's a big game since Alabama pounded Michigan 2 or 3 years ago. But other than that, I mean, they play Rutgers and they play Maryland from the other division. And the big thing I did was looking at who teams played in cross-division games. So they probably got the easiest cross-division games, where Minnesota and Nebraska have much more difficult cross-division games. Mm-hmm. And then it's just I don't think they're great, but I think they're certainly good enough to roll out on the field and beat Purdue and Illinois and Iowa. And they lost to Northwestern last year, but I don't think they'll lose to them again this year.
Wisconsin, stack them.
I was just going to say, with regards to that Alabama game, I think Alabama will beat Wisconsin, but it's going to mask a lot of problems that they'll have down the road with their quarterback situation. I think that's the biggest issue with Alabama this year, which is why I do think they will struggle, quote unquote, and lose 2 or 3 games.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go all the way in on the Alabama-Wisconsin game breakdown, but this is as bad of a matchup for Wisconsin as you could possibly have, because the only things they do well is what Alabama's perfect at stopping.
The thing I don't like about Wisconsin, or I don't like about the Big Ten West in general this year, is how poorly all of them match up against Ohio State in the championship game. They won't even mount a challenge from what I can tell, and that's pretty boring, disconcerting when you think of how bad the Big Ten championship game is going to be, and we're in the middle of August. We know how terrible it's going to be already.
That's assuming Ohio State gets by Michigan State.
That's right.
I think if Michigan State wins, they'll kick the crap out of whoever they play. Calling it now.
Wisconsin, as Charlie mentioned, they do not play Ohio State, Michigan State, or Michigan, so that's good for them.
Or Penn State.
The 4 best teams. I mean, they got the perfect schedule. Perfect schedule.
Yep.
How about this?
Basically, they would have to be undefeated and lose in the Big Ten championship game for you to even consider them as part like a playoff team.
Wisconsin?
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about it because they're going to lose to Alabama week
Right.
1.
Right.
How about this?
If that were their only loss, and they somehow beat Ohio State in the Big Ten,
Oh yeah.
then you'd put them
Yeah.
in?
Oh, definitely.
At that point, they'd have the win they need to get in.
I mean, any one-loss conference title game winners in. I feel confident.
Let's say Ohio State is undefeated to that point and loses to Wisconsin, and there's only one team picked from the Big Ten. Who are you taking?
It's you have an undefeated Wisconsin and undefeated Ohio State?
No, one-loss Wisconsin team. They lose to Alabama in the opener.
Okay.
And they lose to and they beat an undefeated Ohio State team in the Big Ten championship game by a field goal.
I think both get in.
How bad do they lose to Alabama?
3 touchdowns at least.
I'd probably still say Wisconsin would get in if they
How
beat
good is Alabama?
Ohio State in the conference title game.
I think people are definitely willing to look past early losses. That was the case with Ohio State, Virginia Tech, and that was a bad loss last year.
Awful.
Yeah, it was the same with the BCS, too, that almost always, if you lose, there were exceptions, but it was usually if you lost and you got in and you lost early in the season.
I'm just saying, do you look past that in turn? Like, if there's 2 one-loss teams in the Big 12, TCU and Baylor, do you overlook one of those teams again just because they don't have a Big Ten championship game? Because I would argue that both Baylor and TCU are better than Wisconsin.
Definitely.
I don't think you get a whole lot of people that would say that Wisconsin's better than TCU or Baylor.
Right, but
I think that's a safe argument.
And I know we're throwing hypotheticals out there, but
That's what college football is about, hypotheticals.
Essentially, Wisconsin would have to be undefeated for me to even consider them a playoff team this year.
Okay. How about this? What team, not Wisconsin, will finally win the West at some point?
Minnesota.
Oh, go to hell. What will be that first?
I actually think. Iowa has a cake schedule, but I think they're going to crap their pants.
Like to win the West, you have to beat Wisconsin.
Yep, you do.
I think if DeMornay Pearsonell didn't break his foot, I probably would have picked Nebraska to win the Big Ten West this year. I think Nebraska will find a way to win it, and I don't know if Mike Riley's a great coach or not, but something that both Mike Riley and Jerry Kill have done multiple times that Paul Chryst has never done is win 7 games in the regular season.
Yeah.
Or win 8 games in the regular season, or win 9 games in the regular season.
That's the one.
Charlie, you're a good friend for bringing all these things on the table about how Wisconsin is ill prepared for this season. And you've shown me the light, even though I picked them at 10-2 this year.
I mean, I've still got Wisconsin winning the division also, and I think certainly this will be Paul Chryst's best season ever as a head coach. But I think he's gone like 7-6, 6-7, and 6-7 at Pitt, and Pitt's not great, but Pitt had some good players, and I think that Wisconsin. And the other thing, especially for this year, is like for the 4th and 5th year guys at Wisconsin, this is their 3rd head coach in 4 or 5 years now, and I just think, I don't think Wisconsin's going to fall to like being how they were before Barry Alvarez was there. I'm not sold. I think Brett Bielema found a way to build something pretty good, and Gary Anderson kind of capitalized on it.
Wide left.
And then I think Wisconsin's fine. I think, and as long as the Big Ten West stays how it is right now, they'll have a chance to win it every year until a few more teams start playing better consistently. I just don't think Wisconsin. Like we've said, I think they've got a much, much, much better schedule than they do a football roster from top to bottom right now.
I said it when Paul Chryst was hired. It's as uninspired of a coaching pick as I've seen in a long time. I realize that you want to continue what you had under Alvarez, under Bielema, and under Anderson, but I hate it. I hate it. He's a boring ass coach, and Wisconsin will continue to be a boring ass team with a bad quarterback, and I hate it.
And then you bring up quarterback. I think, to me, the three teams competing for the West are Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Minnesota. And I'm not going to speak highly of Tommy Armstrong or Mitch Leidner and say either of them are great quarterbacks. I think they're both better than Joel Stave, though, because I would rather have the guy that can't throw and can at least run than the guy who can't throw or can't run.
And the only I hold reservations on Nebraska just because I'm not sure Mike Riley is truly the guy. I think they'll be good this year, but I do think Minnesota tops them in the West. I want to see what Mike Riley can do in 1 year at Nebraska before I jump on this Nebraska wagon for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and I won't say a whole lot about Nebraska, but I think like roster-wise from top to bottom, I think Michigan State's better than they are. But I think everyone else they play, that nobody else is dramatically more talented. But just the way it sets up and with a new head coach, Nebraska could go anywhere between 10-2 or 7-5, and I don't think they'll go 10-2. I would say they'll go like 8-4. They could go 9-3, but I would think they'll probably go 8-4.
I have Nebraska at 9-3, and I have them losing at Miami, at Minnesota, and losing at home to Michigan State. So I have Wisconsin.
Yeah, beating Wisconsin. I'm okay with that. That works for me.
Wisconsin's only conference loss at Nebraska in week 6. So I have Iowa at 8-4, 4-4 in the league. Northwestern 7-5, 4-4 in the conference, and Illinois and Purdue not making a bowl. Goodbye, Tim Beckman. Goodbye.
Yeah, Nebraska won't be better than 9-3. They'll either 7-5 to 9-3 is the range.
Yep, I got Wisconsin 10-2, Iowa 9-3, all conferences, all losses in the conference. Nebraska 8-4, Northwestern 6-6, Minnesota 4 wins. Picks now. What do we got for picks? Charlie, start with you. Ohio State versus Wisconsin, I believe.
Yep.
And
Ohio State at 12, possibly 11-1, but probably 12-0. If you're going to make me pick a record, I'd say 12-0. And Wisconsin at 9-3.
Any playoff teams coming from this conference? 1, 2. Do they have 4 playoff teams? How many playoff teams?
1.
Ohio State.
Yep.
Marcus, is anything different for you?
No, and I will say I'm going to reserve my playoff picks kind of for next week when I have the other conferences done, so I sort of have the idea. But I have Ohio State at 13-0, so they will be in the playoff.
Nathan Stacken.
I'll take Ohio State against Wisconsin. Ohio State crushes them. They are for sure a playoff team. I might be putting Michigan State in the other playoff team as another playoff team, but I still haven't made my full picks. I'd like to tickle your fancy if I could.
Oh, yeah,
no, please. Don't
not trivia question yet, but I am gonna sometime in the next week or two. I'm gonna come out with my big college football preview blog. It won't be anything like what'll be put on the Sports Lounge or anything that Marcus or Charlie might do. But I've looked through all the Big Ten schedules of the Big Ten teams, and I've said that these are the top games to watch for this year. So let me just see if you agree with these or not. This first one I'm not quite sure of, but I picked TCU at Minnesota because I do think Minnesota will.
Did you just pick one for each week?
I did not. I went down there some weeks. There's 1 week that has 3 big games in it.
Okay. Okay, gotcha.
So TCU at Minnesota Thursday, September 3rd. I picked Ohio State at Virginia Tech Monday, September 7th because Joey Bosa won't play. The 3 other guys for Ohio State. Virginia Tech plays awesome at night. I think Bud Foster is really going to get that defense going. I do like Virginia Tech a lot this year. I don't know if they can win that one, but if Ohio State, if their national championship hopes are going to be slightly derailed, it will be in week 1.
They'll win it on a blocked punt. Beamer ball. Go.
Beamer ball.
Saturday, September 12th, Oregon at Michigan State.
Yes.
Saturday, October 10th, Wisconsin at Nebraska. Saturday, October 17th, Penn State at Ohio State. Saturday, November 21st, Michigan State at Ohio State. And then a triple header on the 28th.
Whoa.
Ohio State at Michigan, Wisconsin at Minnesota, Penn State at Michigan State.
It's a good lineup there.
I don't see anything that you particularly missed.
No. I do have some non-conference games for each conference. We've mentioned a lot of them. Utah, Michigan, obviously, in 11 days here, 11 nights. Alabama, Wisconsin. BYU at Nebraska tickles my dick.
Dude, I don't know what's going to happen in that game. Both teams have guys injured and suspended, and there might only be like 40 players playing by the time the game rolls around.
As long as there's a big fight at the end, I'll be happy.
That might be mentioned in coaches getting fired also.
Obviously, Northern Iowa, the best team in the state year in and year out. But September 5th, tricky game here. Illinois State at Iowa.
Yeah.
Any takers here, boys? Iowa.
Give me Illinois State.
I wanted to, and it would make me very happy if I were to lose that game, because they're known. Since we're talking about dicks, they're known for dicking around against FCS teams. I believe it was Tennessee Tech a couple years ago that stuck around way too long. Northern Iowa has done it over and over against Iowa. Next, I'm just saying it now. Next year they play North Dakota State. Put them on upset alert now. So I think that will be a great game. It'll be interesting. I believe they still have Kolprich, right? The running back for Illinois State. So I would be very happy to see him run roughshod through the
roughshod boys.
I think the Iowa-Illinois State game will be the classic one where Iowa trails for the first 56 minutes of the game and then gets like a lucky pass interference call or the defense blows the coverage and they win by a field goal or a late touchdown and everyone in Iowa City goes nuts.
It is the traditional Week 1 Big Ten Network game where you're like, holy shit, this game's still close, and you flip it over there, and then Iowa punches in another touchdown, and that usually puts it out of reach. But there's always one on Big Ten Network every year, Week 1, and I think that will be the game this year.
On Sunday the 6th, we also have Purdue at Marshall. Terrific.
God damn it, Purdue, you're going to lose.
Minnesota at Colorado State, Week 2. Nebraska, Miami, Week 3. And BYU at Michigan, Week 4. Games of interest. So, Mr. Schottenkirk says he likes Ohio State and Michigan State to make the playoff.
Wow.
So, assuming here he has Michigan State losing one game, that being to Ohio State, and I'll just assume, like everybody else, he has Ohio State beating Wisconsin in the championship game.
And who do you have, Mr. Kriens?
I have Ohio State over Wisconsin, with Ohio State being your overall number 1 seed in the playoff. Not winning the playoff, I don't think, but number 1 seed in the playoff.
And I just want to throw in my NCAA 14 PlayStation 3 simulation,
yes,
where I went through. And you can download updated rosters for this year if you go to, I think, operationsports.com. So they're completely updated. Rosters are accurate. I updated all the conferences, which took longer than I thought it would. Now, granted, some of the schedules are the non-conference games from a few years ago, so it's not perfect. But I simulated the whole year, and NCAA 14 says Ohio State beats Nebraska 31-13 in the Big Ten title game.
It would be nice to see somebody other than Wisconsin in the deal.
Minnesota.
Them two. We head now, obviously, to change the hats. Go west, Pac-12. A lot of people like the Pac-12. A lot of people like that South. Arizona State, USC, Arizona, Utah, UCLA. A lot of people hard could say. A lot of people could say this conference is on the come.
Nobody's hard for Colorado, though.
Pretty soft there in those mountains.
They're all high up there.
Here's the Colorado preview. The Colorado preview from one David Schottenkirk is to give them one more win than you were planning on giving them.
I got them at 2-10, second consecutive year, 0-9 in the conference.
Damn.
I think Colorado plays 13 games. I think they did the Hawaii exception to the rule thing.
They sure did.
So Colorado has to actually win 7 games to go to a bowl game this year. 6 and 7 would not get them in.
Good.
Awful. Comparing the SEC West to the Pac-12 South, Mr. Hildebrand, any comparison here? Is this a race?
I think the Pac-12 South will be more interesting and fun to watch. I think the SEC West is better. Just they've got the benefit of having an extra team, and if you have an extra team, it's unlikely that your extra team will be the best or the worst team. They'll probably be somewhere in the middle, and then whichever team that doesn't matter. The bottom line is that it's possible every SEC West team will make a bowl game for the second year in a row. I don't think Colorado's going to a bowl game. I think the other 5 all will, and they'll all be good. But I don't think it's quite the same as the SEC West. But I think the Pac-12 South will be more fun, and I'm more interested in who wins that.
I look at the SEC, and they got Auburn and Alabama as two national title contenders. Traxler, does the South have one?
Yeah, I think they have just one national title contender.
USC?
USC is the team for me, yeah.
Okay. Stack, and how do you look at that South?
It's a 3-team race between Arizona State, UCLA, and USC, but UCLA is a very distant third, I would say. Probably, I guess you could throw Utah in there as well. So I think it really comes down to USC and Arizona State, but I'll put my money on USC if I were a betting man.
You're not giving Arizona any credit, the team that won the South last year?
Nope, none whatsoever. I don't. They're an afterthought.
Really, an afterthought
in Colorado, but I think it all boils down to USC and Arizona State.
Wow.
Well, Arizona State's got a pretty good schedule. They got all the tough teams at home. And Mr. Stack and I told you last week I had a surprise team of the year, and Arizona State would be that team, similar to Traxler's North Carolina squad, the Gamecocks from last year.
Oh man, I had South Carolina in the playoffs last year.
We're going on the bandwagon with the Devils. I like them to win the South.
How many hats? Bring out all the hats. Whatever hats you got.
We got plenty of hats. 11-1, 8-1 for Arizona State. Big time offense. Who do we like to win the South? You got USC. You're big on USC. They got. Can they win at Arizona State?
Who are you talking to?
A lot of close games last year. USC lost last-minute touchdown games.
Yep.
USC, can they beat Arizona on the road?
Arizona State?
Yeah.
They cannot, but I still have them winning the conference, winning their division. And here's why. I have Arizona State at 10-2. I have USC at 11-1. Their only loss at Arizona State. I have Arizona State losing at UCLA and at Utah.
You like Utah? What do we got Utah going here?
I don't have them winning the entire league. I think they lose at USC. I think they lose at Oregon, which I think will be a difficult game for them as well. That gives them 2 conference losses. They would then be out of it. I think UCLA will be good, but they don't have the right games at home, and I just look at UCLA. I look at Arizona State. Both teams that usually crap away a chance or two, and I think USC gets back on that championship pedigree.
I think if UCLA had a better quarterback, I might pick UCLA. I think they might have the best roster from top to bottom, maybe in the entire Pac-12. Yep. But I don't trust Rick Neuheisel's kid at quarterback. I forget what his first name is. And this Rosen guy they've got, I'm sure he'll end up being plenty good. I don't think he'll be lights out as a true freshman, though.
Yeah, Arizona State's a very good choice. I agree with Marcus. I see USC losing 2 games at Arizona State and at Oregon. But, I mean, Arizona State's got a difficult game against Texas A&M.
Bring it!
UCLA's no small task. I think they will lose at Utah as well. Oregon could be tough. I could really see them having 9-3 or 10-2 in a tie, I guess.
So
I take that back. I have USC losing twice. I have them losing at Oregon as well.
So how's that figure in your deal then? Arizona State wins that then, or what?
I would have to look at the tiebreakers here. I don't know what the tiebreaker is in the Pac-12.
Well, who wins between Arizona State and USC?
Arizona State.
And who else would they lose?
I would guess that head-to-head probably matters, right?
Unless it's a three-way tie.
Unless it's a 3 or a 4-way tie.
Yeah, so I would.
Yep, that'd be that.
So for me, it comes down to that Arizona State and USC game. Winner of that game wins the conference, and I think Arizona State wins because it is at home. So that's as simple as it gets for me. And I have Arizona State at 11-1. I have USC, Arizona, and Utah all at 9-3. So as far as the South is concerned, I think that's a pretty good top 3 or 4 right there. Heading to the North, that's not very good. David thinks Oregon loses 3 times. They have a new quarterback, Vernon Adams, Eastern Washington, Red Turf, all that shit.
Maybe Vernon Adams. He's only been there for like 5 days.
He's been there for not a long time. Depending on who they pick for quarterback, Charlie, this is, for me, it's just plug a guy in, he'll do fine. Plug a running back in, he'll do fine. Is this, how can you not do well in this system?
I think you have to be better than just competent, but if you're like in that above average range at quarterback, I think you can be really, really good at Oregon. I think they'll be successful with either one. I don't think either of them will be as good as Marcus Mariota was. I think they can be as good as Kriens' guy Jeremiah Masoli was, who set the SEC on fire.
I mean, he really did.
But I mean, I think they can get that level of play, and if they get that level of play, I think it's tough for Oregon to be worse than 9-3 unless their defense is just truly atrocious. And I think Oregon's got a lot of other weapons on offense. I know one of their running backs got hurt, but they're so loaded at skill positions that I think that the North will be one of the more boring division races, just because, it's Oregon and Stanford, and I think every other team in the Pac-12 North could be 6-6 or worse.
I agree with that. I right now, that's the only 2 teams I have making a bowl game. Only 2 teams over 500 in the North. Everybody else I have under 500. I have Oregon at 10-2.
I was just going to say Oregon losing Thomas Tyner does hurt them a little bit. He was a good rusher for them last year. I agree. I see them losing 2 games, Michigan State and USC.
Is Michigan...
No, I'm sorry. Arizona State. I'm sorry. Michigan State and Arizona State.
Okay. Is Michigan State, Arizona, that the best non-conference game of the year?
Michigan State, Oregon?
Yes.
Probably.
My gut reaction is it is. I think it's possible Arizona State, Texas A&M is the other one that I think.
Points there, boy.
I mean, we do SEC next week. I don't have Texas A&M in the SEC West. I think Texas A&M is going to be pretty good though next year.
UCLA's quarterback Jerry Neuheisel. Jerry.
That's right.
Jerry.
Anyway, I didn't say who I thought would win the South. I don't think it'll be UCLA. I think they've got the best roster. I thought I was being clever picking Arizona State, but it turns out I am not.
We go for the Devils.
I think.
Well, last year
Mike Bercovici, like when Taylor Kelly got hurt, Bercovici came in, and he's not as good of a runner, but he basically he can throw it better, and at times he looked just as good. Offensively, I should say as a whole, offensively, they look just as good with Bercovici. And they got 16 starters back. And I forget the guy's name. They've got DJ Foster, I think, who's like a sort of running back receiver. He does whatever they want him to. Also really good. So I've got Arizona State in the South. And then in the North, I think that I think Stanford will be a little bit better than they were last year, but be like 8-4, maybe 9-3, and I've got Oregon winning the North.
I need to clarify my position so I have this correct for the record.
Yes.
I do have USC winning that division, the South.
With a record of what?
They are 11-1 overall. The only loss at Arizona State, but I have Arizona State with 2 losses. And I was going back and forth on the Oregon USC game, and I have decided to give that to USC. And because of that, did we talk about Stanford at all here?
No, I think that I got them for 10 wins. Schedule's not tough. I got Oregon and Stanford at 10-2, Oregon at 8-1, Stanford at 7-2.
I have the opposite. I have Stanford beating Oregon at home. Stanford 10-2, 8-1 in the league. Only losses at USC, and I have Stanford versus USC in the Pac-12 title game.
Pretty good.
I think Stanford certainly could be really good this year.
The Oregon losses are at Arizona State and at home to USC, which would be a shocker if they were to lose at home. But
when's the last time they lost at home?
Oregon?
I mean, that's...
Are we asking? Oregon lost at home to Arizona last year.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's right.
But then they beat them in the conference title game badly.
So I would say the top, I mean, I'd put those top 6 teams, Oregon, Stanford, USC, Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah. I'll put those 6 up against anybody. Those might be the 6 best as far as top 6 teams in a conference. I'd say that's the best 6 right there.
Yeah, pretty good.
I think you can make a strong case for it.
That other shit there in the bottom, that's no good.
I've said this before. I think if you pick the SEC to be the best conference going into the year, you will probably be right picking them more than anybody else. There's a good chance they'll be the best conference again this year. But I'm just more interested and intrigued in the Pac-12. I think the Pac-12 is just kind of more entertaining to watch at this juncture in time.
And it's famous for these late night shootouts, these games where you're fighting to keep your eyes open.
Pac-12 refs.
Yeah, and Pac-12 refs messing everything up. So I think this will be a real fun season. This feels like the league that is most likely for me to get these picks wrong, going game by game, because you know there's going to be some upsets. And we were talking about the South. You guys weren't high on Colorado, and I kind of saved that.
Only Colorado's high on Colorado.
What are you smoking?
I have them at 7-6. I think they'll
what
make a bowl.
the fuck are you doing? 7-6.
No, listen. Hear me out here. Here's their wins.
Oh.
These are not going to blow. These aren't going to blow you off the map. They're going to win at Hawaii, UMass, Colorado State, Nicholls State, Arizona, at Oregon State. Oregon State is trash city, and they're going to win at Washington State.
So the only one that seems a little odd, I would say, would be Arizona,
and that's at home.
But yeah, they could beat them.
They're not beating it. Well, no. Which one are you more confident in? Colorado winning 20 games, or Minnesota winning 15 games?
I am more confident in Minnesota going 9-3.
Yeah, this Colorado. I think this is North Carolina revisited. Jesus Christ!
I had North Carolina for 10 wins. That's totally different.
That's Colorado for 7's pretty much the same.
Look at the team. Look, did you listen to the teams I just read off?
I went through it. I mean, I don't think they're beating Arizona.
They might not even beat Hawaii.
I don't think they're beating Hawaii. I had them for Nicholls State, and what other 9-man team are they playing?
UMass.
Nicholls State and UMass. I got those 2. Those are your wins.
Oh, you guys are a downer.
Traxler, did you have every Pac-12 South team making a bowl game?
No, I have Arizona going 5-7.
You have Arizona going 5-7.
Jesus.
Yeah,
I think Arizona's like a lot of people are underrating them. It could happen, you know, when like we've seen with the SEC West at times when you got a lot of really good teams in the division and they play each other. Somebody's got to lose. So somebody in the Pac-12 South.
You know who I have losing? I have Colorado losing. That's who I've got. I've got them losing all the games.
But even then, I mean, they've still got to play the other teams. I mean, I think Arizona will probably be like 8-4, but I can't sit here and say I'd be shocked if they went 5-7.
The games I have,
Just like I think Utah will be 7-5 or 8-4, but if you said Utah goes 5-7, I couldn't be like, oh no, that's criminal. I mean, just because they're going to be in a lot of these toss-up games, these late-night games where they want to just go to bed and sleep like good students do on Saturday nights, and weird stuff happens.
I have Arizona at 5-7 with wins over UT San Antonio, Nevada, Northern Arizona, Oregon State, and Washington State. And their losses, I think, are all legit losses. UCLA, Stanford, at Washington, at USC,
Washington,
Utah. I don't think Washington's going to be very good this year. 5-7 for Washington.
I don't know how good Chris Peterson's going to be at Washington. If he sort of becomes decent, I think we're going to look back and they're going to be like, how did they have all these amazing defensive players on last year's team that got drafted so early and were so mediocre? Because I think they went 7-6 last year, despite having like 3 first-round draft picks.
And Shoddy, he was telling me that Cal is going to be better. I still have them at 4-8.
Hey, don't they have Goff, that quarterback? He's pretty legit.
Sure. And
Cal could be better. Cal could be better and still go 5-7 and not make a bowl game.
How can Cal be better? He went undefeated with Kentucky and almost won the national title. How can he be better?
Know.
I think the Pac-12 North. Maybe I should put it this way: if you take away the best team in a division and only count like numbers 2 through 6 or 2 through 7, the Pac-12 North can be pretty bad this year.
It is awful.
I mean, it's possible. Cal could beat Washington, Washington State, and Oregon State, and there's 3 wins right there. I don't know who they play in the non-conference, but if they've got 2 bad non-conference games, they're at 5 then. 5 wins.
They have Grambling, San Diego State, and they're at Texas. And I have them losing at Texas.
Yep.
Let's just say that any game in the Pac-12 North not involving Stanford or Oregon will be shown on the Pac-12 network, and even the camera crews are going to try and kick themselves out of these games because they want to save them.
That's rough watching there.
I want to take this moment to admonish Gary Anderson for leaving Wisconsin to go to Oregon State, where he will be 3-9 and terrible this year. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I think Oregon State will be trash, and I think Gary Anderson will regret that.
Yeah, I mean, I get he was upset because he couldn't get a lot of the recruits he wanted to into Wisconsin, but this is sort of like,
come on.
This is like waiting in line to go to the opening Friday night of some huge summer blockbuster and being like, you know what? I've been here for 10 minutes. I don't like sitting in the second row. I'm going to go see this dog shit kids movie instead. No Batman versus Superman for me. I'm going to go see that Pixar movie that everyone said was, Pixar's a bad example. You're like, I'm going to go see that drama movie with Ben Affleck that nobody wants to go see.
Or one with Owen Wilson, Escape. Like, when is Owen Wilson ever in a serious drama? He's a comedian.
No Star Wars. I'm going to see Escape with Owen Wilson.
That looks like a bad movie. I got to be honest.
Honesty is our best policy.
You want the conference title game breakdown now?
You got USC and Stanford.
I gotta make Shoddy happy. USC.
Any playoff teams here?
You
will wait on next week.
I'll wait on that. I will wait on that. Yeah.
I have Oregon over Arizona State. Oregon ruling the roost again.
Oregon.
Stacking.
I thought I was going to have Oregon against USC, but I guess if a tiebreaker would put Arizona State in there.
So you have Arizona State and USC.
No, okay. I'll say Oregon against USC, and USC beats Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be interesting because those 2 teams would play 2 weeks before the title game, before the conference championship game.
Didn't they have something like that a year or 2 ago that happened?
Yes, UCLA.
Stanford.
Yeah.
right? The UCLA and Oregon.
Oregon.
Yeah, that was bad games, and UCLA stuck with them for a while. Playoff team stacking, you want to wait or?
I'll wait with those, but I don't see any right now. Though I think USC is a certain possibility. I do have some, as I did with the Big Ten. I have some big games from the Pac-12. So let me see if you guys.
Just a second here, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Because we've been talking now that one loss. How many losses do you have for USC?
2.
Oh, 2 losses. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about one loss conference champions.
Yep.
Are almost sure to get in. I would guess that in my scenario, where USC only has 1 loss, that loss at Arizona State, they would get in.
Good enough.
Your scenario with 2 losses, they may be on the outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be interested to see what the first 2-loss team in the playoff when that happens, what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I've got Arizona State at 11-1, everybody with 2 losses, and I have Arizona State losing in the title game would give them 2 losses, so everybody would have 2 losses. So.
And nobody gets in your book.
And who is Charlie's pick?
All right. Charlie or LeBrand?
Mine, I didn't go through and pick every individual game. I can give you a rough record, and roughly who they will lose to, but maybe not everybody. Well, it won't matter for every conference. For this one, to me, it will sort of matter. I've got Oregon.
Give me the records in the Mountain West. Give me the records.
Oregon at 10-2. They lose to Michigan State, and they lose to, I don't know, let's say, I write down Oregon's schedule on here. Let's say Oregon loses to Michigan State and USC maybe.
At Arizona State.
I've got Oregon's winning. Oregon's going to beat Arizona State in the regular season. And then in the Pac-12 South, I think Arizona State loses to Texas A&M in the non-conference and then wins the South with a 9-3 overall record. And then Arizona State avenges their loss to Oregon in the regular season, and 10-3 Arizona State wins the Pac-12.
Wow.
Oregon could be on fire again this year.
Literally, they got West Fire.
The whole state? The whole state?
The whole state.
That's not good for anybody.
Except on the coast. Right along the coast there.
Coast.
And I think the Pac-12 makes a strong case for being a great conference depth-wise, but with 3-loss team winning the conference, no Pac-12 team in the playoffs.
As much as I dislike watching Michigan State, I think I'll enjoy watching Arizona State. It's hard to fill the shoes of the great Osweiler, but I think they'll be able to do so.
I think Arizona State will be interesting just because their defense is solid but not great, but they do blitz a whole lot, which can create turnovers, or they can get burned deep. And I think they'll be good on offense.
I can't pick.
Simulation-wise, PlayStation 3 has USC defeating Oregon 31-14.
All right.
Wow. I can't root for Arizona State because of Todd Graham and his dumb earpiece.
What was that?
Todd Graham, earpiece.
Your guy.
He's bad.
Stack and give us the big games.
Okay, so this first one I know you guys will disagree with, but I find it to be very intriguing. Washington at Boise State.
It's on my list.
California Grambling stacking, come on.
I think if Chris Peterson didn't used to coach at Boise State, I wouldn't be all that interested in it. But that makes it a little more interesting.
Exactly. That's why I put it on there. Saturday, September 12th, I already mentioned this for the Big Ten, Oregon at Michigan State. Saturday, September 26th, USC at Arizona State. Saturday, October 3rd, Arizona State at UCLA. Triple header on Saturday, October 17th, USC at Notre Dame, Arizona State at Utah. And I did pick Oregon at Washington just because I think Washington's going to be the second best team in the Pac-12 North. Or third. I'm just saying Oregon could slip up there. Thursday, October 29th, Oregon at Arizona State. Saturday, November 14th, Oregon at Stanford. Saturday, November 21st, USC at Oregon. And then Saturday, November 28th, UCLA at USC.
Also want to mention Utah, Michigan, as we have before.
Yes.
BYU on the list again. They play every team at UCLA.
Well, you're not in a conference. You can really load up on non-conference games.
They just play the best team in every conference. USC at Notre Dame. That's always a fun one. And Stanford at Notre Dame. Also, Stanford host Oregon for what that's worth for you. And possibly the game with maybe the biggest spread. I could see it being Georgia State at Oregon. That could be bad, very bad.
Is it going to be 70-3 like USC beat USD, I think, a couple years ago? Was that?
Very, very likely that could happen.
All right. You want a trivia question?
Sure. Schottenkirk said, didn't get a pick here, but he said Oregon 3 losses. So there we go. Stacking. Right. What do we got? Trivia.
All right. So 2,000-yard rushing seasons. We've seen them before in college football. There are 16. Actually, let me make sure I have all this here.
Did you forget Melvin Gordon last year?
Oh.
Sorry.
There are 17 times it has happened. 16 players have done it. 1 player has done it twice.
Is he an asshole?
Yes.
I will. I'll allow you guys to pick all these 2,000-yard rushers. We'll go on my screen. We'll go Charlie, Marcus, and Travis.
Shit.
Well, since I go first and I spoiled Melvin Gordon, I'll say Melvin Gordon.
Melvin Gordon, yes, 2,109 yards last year. He's from Wisconsin. It should be noted, too, that there is 16 different schools that have had a rusher.
Oh, good. Good.
I believe the guy who's on there twice is an asshole, Ron Dane.
Ron Dane, no.
Really?
What?
I do not
I'm
see
like
Ron
99% sure Ron Dane ran for 2,000 yards.
Based on this list that I had, I do
not. Get a better list. Get a better list, you jackhole.
Ron Dane, college stats. See what we got. I would, yeah, he was all-time leader.
I know he did it.
I'm almost positive he ran for 2,000 his freshman year, which was weird because usually you run for 2,000 when you're a junior or a senior.
He ran for it in a freshman year and a senior year. 2109.
Damn right. Get a better list.
This is a pre-1996 list.
No, it's not. But this is pretty god awful that the list that I looked at didn't have any of them. Okay, so 17. We'll let you in.
Alrighty.
Yeah, you better. You better.
Unfortunately, now whenever anyone guesses someone,
no, he was there. He was there.
No, we can be like, hey, I'm pretty sure that I don't know.
Robert Smith was on there.
Yeah, I was trying to think of some running back that we would all know that was really bad, but I'm pretty sure Maurice Clarett ran for 2,000 yards like 4 times.
I'll go Barry Sanders since I think he holds the record with. I think he ran for 5,800 yards one year.
2,628 yards in 90. No, yeah, for Oklahoma State. So you are correct. In 1988.
Averaged 500 yards a game.
So it's back to me.
It is back to you.
Well, we'll see how accurate this list is. I'm going to say Mike Rozier from Nebraska in 1983.
Correct. 2,148 yards.
They just left off the assholes, so Ron Dane, that's why it was off.
That's fine if that's the reasoning, but I'm going to go with Tony Dorsett.
Tony Dorsett.
Well, I better check this one now out too, since.
God damn it!
Take a big Tony Dorsett.
I think this is a good question, Sackett, and I like it. There's one problem with it is that they didn't used to count bowl games in stats, and like some schools try to retroactively count them, and with some guys that can change how things work out. And I think, and then that's not your fault. It's whoever puts it together has
Dorsett
to be
on the list.
Aware of it.
All right, we'll give you Tony Dorsett then.
You damn right you are. Hand them all over, I say.
All of them. Look at Sano! Sano with a blast! Go!
Settle down.
Kevin Smith, Central Florida. Suck on him.
I was going to use that one really, really late.
No.
All right. Charlie.
Okay, let's see.
That could be a guy. Look at Miguel Sano. Look at this guy go. Tremendous.
He's all right. He's all right at baseball.
He's the best I've ever seen.
Since I make this mistake all the time and start trying to go with guys I'm pretty sure on the list, I'll just go with guys I know are, and I will say Troy Davis from Iowa State.
That one was.
He's the guy that I had on here twice. 2,185 yards in 96 and 2,010 yards in 95.
For an Iowa State team that couldn't do anything except hand it off to him over and over and over and over again.
It worked. He had a hell of a career, NFL career.
I will say Andre Williams, Boston College from a few years ago.
That is correct. 2,177 yards. Let's pull this up here now.
Pulling it up.
There is a... Yeah, they don't count Ron Dane in here, which is odd.
Is he because he's black?
No.
Because he was fat.
That might be why.
Because he went to Wisconsin. Earl Campbell.
I do see him there.
Is Earl Campbell a guy? Did he do anything of note?
I don't see Earl Campbell on this list.
I immediately regret my decision and wish I would have picked a different running back.
That would have been wise.
They went to the same school, yes.
It would have been wise. But no, I do not see him on here.
I'll take a peek. Charlie.
While you're doing that, we'll go back to Charlie. Or did I skip Marcus?
Nope.
Nope, it's Charlie's turn.
Okay.
Now I'm banking off. If I want to keep my back pocket one that I think is unlikely anyone else knows.
Don't do it.
I feel like I got a couple back pocket ones. So
the thing is, I think we probably both have like 3 back pocket ones.
Yeah, we do. We do.
And then, but there's guys that I'm pretty sure did, but I'm not. And I'll just use this guy now. I'll say Byron Hanspard from Texas Tech in 96 or 97.
Yep. 2,084 yards in 96.
Wow, now that's digging deep. I wouldn't have had that.
That's deep, son.
If Nebraska didn't play Texas Tech that year, there's no reason for me to know it except for that. And Texas Tech used to run the ball a whole lot. That's not the case anymore.
Thanks a lot, Mike Leach.
I am seeing this list now. I do have an accurate list pulled up here in front of me.
That's hopeful.
Yes.
Any other additions that were not? We had 17 guys.
Yes, there is one I see. I don't know. I see another one too. Not one that you had mentioned.
Okay. Marcus.
I'm going to go with Ricky Williams.
That was the guy that I should have picked.
2,124 yards in 98.
Yeah, he was one that I was pretty sure he was, but wasn't positive if he had or not. So now I'm backing other guys that I'm pretty sure, but not positive. I'm going to say...
Zach Zenner.
It was like 99...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but since Kriens mentioned Zach Zenner...
God damn it, Kriens.
I only picked FBS. I did not go FCS.
Oh, that's a shame. Goddamn shame.
I might try that for next week.
I think it was 2000 for Northwestern, Damian Anderson.
Yeah.
Damian Anderson, I do see here, yep, 2,063 yards in 2000.
Wow. I will go with the person who was mentioned earlier. Did it last year, Tevin Coleman.
Absolutely, 2,036 yards for Indiana last year.
I forgot about that.
We're all tied up.
I just had one, and then I started thinking about Tevin Coleman, and now I forgot who it was. And he might not have even been on the list in the first place anyways. Let's see. I know...
Muffin Man.
Does he live on Drury Lane?
Not anymore. He used to. He got a scholarship to go to college, and he hasn't lived on Drury Lane since then. This is really disappointing.
No pressure, but I got a couple.
Ooh. And those Gopher backs.
I'm going to say LaDainian Tomlinson.
LaDainian Tomlinson is correct. 2,158 yards in 2000 for Texas Christian University.
And that year, I think he set the single-game rushing record, which has since been broken twice in consecutive weeks this past season.
It was.
I don't believe anybody has said Marcus Allen.
Marcus Allen, 2,342 yards in 1981 for the USC Trojans.
Getting down there. Yeah. Six left? What do we got?
By my estimation here, I got 7 left.
All right. Packers lead the Steelers, second quarter, 10:45 left. 8-2.
Good.
8-2.
So Andrew McCutcheon hit a 2-run home run.
Ryan Braun, 2 grand slams. 8-2.
I know a lot of the guys that have done it. We maybe have mentioned all the mid-major guys. I don't remember. And instead of just sitting here for forever and maybe coming up with one more, I'm just going to start naming guys who I know had really good seasons but maybe didn't, so this goes faster.
Okay.
I'm going to guess Darnell Autry from Northwestern in the mid-90s.
I do not see him on my list. Wait, who did you say? No,
Darnell Autry?
Yeah, no, not him. Yeah, you said Damian Anderson earlier.
Should have known not to pick 2 Northwestern running backs.
That's right. And there's actually 8 answers. So Marcus for the win.
My back pocket answer has been Matt Forte, Tulane.
Yes, 2,127 yards in 2007. The guys you missed, Lorenzo White from Michigan State in 1985, 2,066
Ray
yards.
Rice.
Ray Rice from Rutgers, 2,012 yards in 2007. J.J. Arrington.
That was the one I was trying to think of. The same year that Aaron Rodgers was at Cal.
2,018 yards for Cal in 2004. Donald Brown, 2,083 yards for UConn in 2008.
Completely forgot about that guy.
Charles White for 2,050 yards for USC in 1979. I don't know why I couldn't find this list when I was initially putting the question up, so that's a fucking shame.
Did you use Ask Jeeves?
I didn't. I should have probably done that.
Should have used Web Crawler.
Alta Vista, where were you?
Netscape. Get Netscape.
Rashawn Salam, Colorado, 2,055 yards in 1994.
That's right.
And Larry Johnson for Penn State,
How did I forget about Larry Johnson? Remember he ran for like 250 yards against Nebraska that year.
LJ.
There you have it. I have another
one. In college, and he had a really weird pro career where he was like pretty good for 5 years, and then just didn't do anything else.
It is interesting because this list that I have pulled up does have asterisks by a lot of these guys saying that they counted that included their bowl stats, and others that don't. So either they didn't make it to the bowl game or they just didn't count it that year. So it's a little odd.
There we go.
We're glad you found a good list.
We wrap it up with the ACC, the worst of the Power 5. You got Florida State, who I don't like very much. Should lose a game this year, so that'd be good to see them lose a conference game. Clemson, everybody likes Clemson. You're 5 years late to the party. Everybody likes Deshaun Watson, quarterback extraordinaire. The talent, immense. Their coach, stupid ass, but oh well. We'll go with Dabo Swinney here. Again, as we mentioned to begin the show, how in the blue hell do we tell these conferences apart? These divisions in this conference. This is ridiculous.
I would say I always remember that Florida State and Clemson are in the same division, and then that Virginia Tech, Duke, North Carolina, and Georgia Tech are in the same division. I forget all the other teams, which ones they're in, and I always forget which conference or which division has which name.
I think it would just be easier if you moved them all like south and north.
How would we do that?
ACC. So the ACC South would have Miami, Georgia Tech,
Florida State.
Yep. We'll throw maybe Louisville in there. Clemson.
Probably Clemson.
Yep. Clemson, NC State, UNC, and Duke, and then.
Okay, and everybody else is north. Wake Forest, Boston College, Syracuse.
I guess you could split up a couple of the North Carolina schools, but like Virginia Tech, BC, Florida State.
Put all the good teams in one division.
It would seem like the South would be better than the North here. The North.
Unlike in the Civil War, this would appear to be correct.
Look at this. Very good. Very good.
Okay, that's what all the Northerners thought for the first 2 years of the Civil War, and then a few years later, they were in like year 4 and 5 of the Civil War.
Right.
They went to picnics. They set up picnics for that first battle, the Battle of Bull Run or whatever it was, because they thought it'd be over in a day, and it was not.
It was not a marathon. It was a marathon. It was not a sprint.
Yeah. It's a war of attrition.
I look at Florida State. They've won 24 conference games in a row, including title games. October 6th of 2012, they lost at North Carolina State, 17-16. They've won 25 of 26. Last time they lost at home was in November of 2011 versus Virginia, also a low-scoring game by a point, 14-13. Florida State, Everett Golson turns the ball over a lot. He's a guy. Mr. Stacken, Florida State. Do they win the conference? Do they win the conference again?
Too many guys getting arrested. I do think Deshaun Goldson might help them out at quarterback, but he turns the ball over too much for my liking. I don't see Florida State. I mean, they'll be good this year, but they are not playoff worthy, national championship worthy. I don't even have them making the conference title game.
I think last year at this time, Kriens and I both had like similar things. And it was that, like, in the last 10 or 15 years, back, not 50 years ago where there were usually only, like, 2 good teams in a conference. But it is really difficult to win a conference 3 years in a row. And last year, Florida State won it for the 3rd year in a row. It's even more difficult to win a conference 4 years in a row. I don't think Florida State's going to do – I don't have them winning. I think they're in the Atlantic. I do not have Florida State winning the Atlantic. They've got – I think they'll be still plenty good. I think they'll win like 9 games on talent alone. They've got some guys back on defense that are pretty good, but their offense, I mean, they lose almost everybody, and then their running back, Dalvin Cook, maybe is still on the team. I think he punched some girl or did something like that bad. And he might end up not being on the team, and he's their best returning offensive player. I think Florida State goes like 9-3 or 10-2 this year.
As you are. Quarterback, Jameis Winston, one of the stupidest bastards of all time. I got him going 9-3, 6-2. Losses at Tech, losses at the Paw, and loss at we'll go loss with Florida for once.
I considered the Florida game, and I gave it to Florida State. I don't know what's going to happen with Florida this year, so I have Florida State 10-2 this season. Same 2 conference losses you have at Tech, at Clemson.
So that brings us to Clemson, national title contender, I would say for the first time in our lives. Deshaun Watson, young quarterback, very good. Anything that stands in their way of winning that conference is Florida State in the Atlantic. At Louisville, week 3, could be a tough game, Mr. Traxler.
Sure could. I think that's I'm playing around with them being undefeated, Clemson, but I don't think it's going to happen. They have a lot of games that beg for them to be tripped up. At Louisville, at Miami, you could even say at NC State, at South Carolina at the end of the year. They have Notre Dame at home. They have Georgia Tech at home. I mean, Georgia Tech, I would say, is always a challenge given that they're given their option. So I think I'm going to have them losing to Louisville on the road. Is that on a Thursday?
It's a Thursday game.
Yeah.
Weird thing about that game, week 3, they both play the Saturday before that. So they play Saturday, and then they both have to turn around and play Thursday on a really short week, which could be odd and interesting.
Why does it seem, Charlie, that these Thursday night games, the favorite is always on the road? And it seems like they're like, well, maybe the road team will pull off the upset here. The home team will pull off the upset.
I don't know. That's a good question. I was thinking similarly along those lines. I think it was yesterday, just how often we get these weird Thursday night upset games that just kind of like, oh, huh. And then you can even look at the schedule and you're like, oh yeah, they should win this game, this game, this game, this game, that game, that game. And you're like, oh, that's a Thursday night game. Yeah, that'll be really tough. And for some reason, we seem to think the Thursday night games are the more difficult ones now. And it seems like that's been the case a lot of the time, that you've either got a favorite that struggles to win or a big upset.
Yeah, but we basically say the same thing about the NFL in Thursday night games, where it seems like they're blowouts or there's something weird always happening. So
for the most part, I do like that they get the week off before Clemson and Louisville doesn't, like Charlie said. I think there was one other game. What was it? Ohio State plays on a Monday, then a Saturday. So most of the time they get a full 10, 11 days off between the Thursday game, which is good because football played 3-4 days after the game usually is not very good. So you take a gander at the Coastal. Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech seems to be the top 2 teams that I have. Duke as well. Stack, and break down your Tech squad this year. What do we got?
I think that this year they're going to be very good. Last year you saw glimpses of it. Some young guys get a year under their belt. They should be just fine. They have the best cornerback in the country in Kendall Fuller. He's the best of the cornerback brethren, the 4 brothers.
They're bold to say he's the best in the country. He's really, really good. I'll give you that.
He's top 5.
The guy at Florida, Vernon Hargraves, is really, really, really good too.
Yes. Okay. Top 5 in the country.
I would certainly agree he's in the top 5.
Yeah, I think Michael Brewer will do just fine. He got a year under his belt. They have some good young talent on the wide receiver side. They always run the ball well. Bud Foster's defense is, for the most part, always consistent. That's why I give Virginia Tech I think Ohio State's it's a 50-50 shot that they lose. I don't think that they're an overwhelming favorite in the opening game of the season. I think Virginia Tech can definitely hold their own with them and maybe pull out that win. Other than that, I don't see any real threat to Virginia Tech on this. I'm just pulling up their schedule right now.
I have them going 8-4, 6-2 in the conference.
East Carolina could be a little trip up for them just because they seem to have had issues with them before.
Oh boy.
Stacky, you can't sit here and tell me that this is a matchup, toss-up game against Ohio State and they can beat Ohio State, but they're going to struggle with East Carolina.
If they were playing, let me say this: if they were playing Eastern Carolina right after Ohio State, then I would say it would be more of a problem. But they have a few weeks in between. I see North Carolina State, and that game is at home, and then at Georgia Tech. Those are the only 2 games that really give me cause for concern. Miami to a certain extent, so I don't see any fewer than 3 losses for Virginia Tech this year. I will say 9-3.
Wow, I'm actually more optimistic. I have Virginia Tech at 10-2. I think they lose to Ohio State. I think they lose at Georgia Tech. And I think I forget which division they're in. Are they in the Coastal?
Coastal, so
I think they're the representative.
Really? What do you got for Georgia Tech here? I got them at 9-3, 6-2, winning the Coastal, with the tiebreaker being beating Virginia Tech November 12th. Also a Thursday game. What do you got for Tech?
I have Georgia Tech 9-3. I have them losing at Notre Dame. I have them losing at Clemson. And I have them losing at Miami.
Okay, so you have Virginia Tech losing to Georgia Tech, winning the conference.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't like it when I've got like the same thing as everybody else. But I also have Virginia Tech winning the Coastal. I picked them to win the Coastal last year, didn't work, so clearly I'm going to pick them to win again this year. I know they do have 16 returning starters. They've got a great secondary, and they return their entire defensive line. I think they'll be very, very good defensively. I think offensively they will be mediocre, but we'll still find ways to win low-scoring games. And for a lot of these, the biggest thing is who do they play in the cross-division. Their cross-division schedules, they play Boston College and North Carolina State. No Florida State, no Clemson, no Louisville.
Yeah, looking at the Virginia Tech, that's not coming up for me. I like Georgia Tech. And speaking of Georgia Tech, Charlie, how do you recruit there, since a lot of the guys at the big-time program say, come to our school, we'll get you in the NFL. Offense option, not a huge I don't think there's any option teams in the NFL last time I checked. Calvin Johnson went there, which was interesting.
Demarius Thomas.
Tyrod Taylor's going to turn the Bills into an option team.
May as well. How do you recruit a big-time guy?
Nebraska didn't used to. I mean, like Georgia Tech's like a true triple option team, and Nebraska under Osborne and Frank Solich, they didn't really run the triple option like they were a power running team that sprinkled in option on top. But they did a lot of the same things. And I remember the problem Nebraska had was it used to be, they would recruit these kids at quarterback that would play an option quarterback in high school, and then they would play like safety or corner on defense. And all these schools would be like, hey, if you want to get to the NFL, come here and you'll play receiver or you'll be a defensive back and you'll actually play in the NFL. And Nebraska would try to get kids by saying, you can actually play quarterback here and you can play the spot you want. And I think in recruiting, certainly defensively, it doesn't matter a great deal. It's tough to get huge prospect offensive linemen because they don't pass block a lot. It's usually pretty easy to get running backs because they're going to get a lot of carries. Quarterbacks, it just depends if they want to play quarterback in college or if they want to try to go to the pros. And they always struggle to get wide receivers, although they did get Demarius Thomas. But quick side note on that, it always kind of surprises me. If I was like a 6'3", 5-star receiver, I would consider going to Georgia Tech because you might only get 4 passes thrown to you a game, but you will be in one-on-one coverage.
Yeah.
No deep help from a safety. All you have to do is beat this corner, and if they're cheating to play the run, you can catch 5 passes, but you could have 180 yards and 3 touchdowns off your 5 passes.
A good point right there. Very good. Even though I do like Georgia Tech, at Notre Dame, at Duke, at Clemson, 3 of their first 6, they could lose all those, so that's not good there.
And Georgia Tech in cross division plays both Clemson and Florida State.
That's pretty tough since they're the 2 best teams over there. So that sucks. Sucks hard. Notre Dame does play 5 of those teams. Stack, and do you have a list of games that we got to watch out for in this conference?
You better believe it.
Good.
I'll pull it up here, and then we'll make our championship preview or our conference championship.
Oh, wait, I didn't pick who I was going to win the Atlantic yet, and it's not Florida State and it's not Clemson either.
Wow.
Are you jumping on a lot of people like North Carolina State?
Nope. Louisville. Schedule for Louisville.
What do we got on the schedule here?
Both Clemson and Florida State have to play Georgia Tech and Miami, and we can debate how good Miami is. Miami certainly has the talent to play well, and Georgia Tech's not an easy out game. Louisville, let's see where I wrote this down on here. They play Pitt and Virginia from the other division, and more importantly, they get Clemson at home. They do play at Florida State, but they have a bye week before they play Florida State. I think they'll probably lose to Florida State. I think they beat Clemson. I think they lose to Auburn in the non-conference, and I think Louisville goes 10-2 with Bobby Petrino in his second year, thanks to a schedule that I mean, I think the Atlantic's the tougher division, especially on top with Clemson and Florida State. But I think they split those games, find a way to win the others, and Louisville goes 10-2. And Bobby Petrino, love him or hate him, it's easy to not like him. He's a very good coach. He's in his second year, and usually his teams greatly improve in year two. They were 9-4 last year, and they also pick up a lot of free agent transfer guys, and they got Devontae Fields, who a couple years ago was the Big 12 Freshman of the Year as a defensive end, and he got kicked off the team for doing something bad. I think it might have been like domestic assault or something like that. Not a good guy, but he's a good football player. And Bobby Petrino cares that they're good guys. He just wants good football players. He's not a good guy either. Over or under 1.5 inappropriate relationships for Bobby Petrino this year.
Over.
I'm going to say under on that, but I think he will do well enough at Louisville that there's a good chance he's not.
What if I gave you half? From now. If I said half, that would be either one or none.
Let's put it this way. I don't know if I like predicting extramarital affairs with things. I think if anything, he's probably learned that if he's still doing that, he's going to be much more sneaky about it than he was while he was at Arkansas.
And say something inappropriate to a woman.
Drink alcohol, that helps.
I don't know if he has time to talk to girls during the season, though. He's pretty busy coaching.
How many motorcycle accidents this year for the guy?
2, but they're both while playing Grand Theft Auto on recruiting visit, so he's actually walks away unscathed.
Charlie had said a while ago that he was thinking about picking 2 teams from one conference to make the playoff, which is probably a spoiler for next week. David did pick Ohio State and Michigan State. Seems to be a lot of questions about the Pac-12 not getting a team in and the ACC not getting a team in, so that leaves some shit open there for 2 teams from one conference to get in, or if you were so inclined to be hard about Notre Dame and think Notre Dame is on the come, possibly picking Notre Dame to win it. Stacking teams and games and teams.
Oh, you want the big games and then we do the conference championship picks?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll start. I have a lot of games for the ACC.
I'm not watching any of them.
No, actually, I don't. I actually don't have that many. The big one, Monday, September 7th, Ohio State at Virginia Tech, already mentioned. Thursday, September 17th, Clemson at Louisville. Saturday, October 3rd, Louisville at North Carolina State. Friday, October 9th, North Carolina State at Virginia Tech. Saturday, October 17th, Louisville at Florida State. Saturday, November 7th, Florida State at Clemson. And then Thursday, November 12th, Virginia Tech at Georgia Tech.
You said Notre Dame, Clemson?
I did not say Notre Dame, Clemson, no.
October 3rd. It's very good.
I apologize. I can add that in there. What's that date?
October 3rd. That could be 2 top 10 teams there. That could be your Saturday night primetime game. God Tech, Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame wins that one. Louisville, Auburn there that opening week. Right? Charlie said he thinks Auburn wins there. The annual North Carolina, South Carolina shit show on, Thursday night? That should be fun. Miami, Nebraska, mentioned that already. Boise State, Virginia. And probably the game of the year, LSU and Syracuse.
At Syracuse.
That's odd.
Hey, LSU, every 4 years, plays for a national title. It was 4 years ago they played for one last.
Yep.
Although, spoiler alert, I do not have LSU making the playoffs.
Oh, come on.
I thought about it, and then I just couldn't. I picked South Carolina to make it last year. I think Louisville's my craziest division winner. Everything else is fairly tame after picking South Carolina and Virginia Tech to both win the divisions last year.
I think we're going to know early on Louisville because that Clemson game is Thursday, September 17th. So if they can win that, they'll be sitting pretty good.
It could blow up in my face. The bright side is if it blows up, I think at worst they go like 8-4 or 9-3. I don't think they go 6-6 like South Carolina and Virginia Tech both finished the regular season last year.
I have Louisville at 9-3, and Auburn. They have that game against Auburn in Atlanta, Week 1. I think that will tell us what kind of team Louisville has.
Michigan State defensive coordinator Pat Narduzzi. Pittsburgh. You've had a lot of hires that you don't like, Marcus. I think this is a good one.
This is a good one. I think Pitt will be better this year. They will stop doing Pitt-like things. And maybe they'll still have their moments, but I have Pitt at 7-5 this season, losing at Iowa, at Virginia Tech, at Georgia Tech, at home to Notre Dame, and I have them giving up a softie at Duke. So.
And they also, you want to have good players there, and Pitt has both. James Conner at running back, who ran for like 1,700 yards last year, and Tyler Boyd, who at Pitt had over 1,000 receiving yards. Although I say that Pitt's actually had some pretty good receivers, like Larry Fitzgerald in the past, but there's some guys there. So if they can find a way to put up some points, and Narduzzi can coach defense, I could see him being 7-5 or 8-4 and having a solid first year.
I'm so
also
waiting for
known as
that.
a better year than Paul Christ ever had at Pitt.
I'm still waiting for that Pittsburgh-Utah Fiesta Bowl rematch from a dozen years ago. When's it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Is this the year?
We might be waiting.
We have any Belk Bowl representatives? Can we get a West Coast team in the Belk Bowl? Let's get that going.
Belk's not interested.
Okay.
They're not interested. They only want SEC, ACC.
Belk Bowl. Utah, NC State for the Belk Bowl this year.
Keep it local.
Keep it local.
If you North Carolina 7-5.
North Carolina 8-4.
Gene Chizik, new defensive coordinator. I hate him.
Do you have them losing to South Carolina in the opener?
Where's it at? I think I do.
It's at North Carolina.
I think I got South Carolina win that. Yeah.
I have given that to North Carolina. I think that's probably the difference that we have between those two.
Al Golden. This is last year, Charlie.
I think it is. I mean, I could see Miami going anywhere between like 6-6 and 9-3. If they go 9-3, he keeps his job. I think there's some guys that are bad coaches. I don't think Al Golden's a bad coach. I just don't think he's the right fit for Miami. I think he would be better at, Temple. I mean, well, he was good at Temple. I don't think James Franklin's going anywhere at Penn State, but I think he would be better at Penn State, someplace like that, where he goes in and he wears the button-up shirt and tie every game. I don't think that's a University of Miami thing. I don't think they really care about stuff like that. And I think that he could go somewhere else and still be successful. He walked into kind of a bad situation with all the sanctions and stuff, but I think that Miami's going to go like 7-5, and I think Al Golden gets fired. And then it just depends who they bring in. Miami's the right coach from going 10-2 consistently, or another guy who's either a bad hire or just the wrong fit from going 7-5 every season for the next decade.
Two things on Miami coaches. One, coach trade. You do a coach trade with Penn State. Al Golden to Penn State. James Franklin to Miami.
Seems to make sense.
Or seems to make some sense. And the other thing is that I forgot what I was going to say. I'll come back to it.
5-7, I got Miami. 5-7, 3-5 in conference.
7-5 for Miami for me this year.
Yep.
I could see him going 5-7. It could happen.
Conference title picks. This one should be varied. Charlie.
Just real quick, I wanted to pick Clemson, and the other reasons I didn't, in addition to Louisville, was that they lose Chad Morris, their offensive coordinator. One of the best offensive coordinators took the head coaching job at SMU. I think they will still be fine on offense. I don't think they will be quite as elite. And on defense, I don't remember. Clemson might run a nickel defense and only have 2 linebackers and 4 defensive linemen. Either way, whether they have a front 6 or a front 7, they lost everybody from that. They replaced their whole defensive line and either 2 or 3 linebackers, and that was why I didn't pick Clemson. Secretly, I would like Clemson to still win, but I've got Louisville and Virginia Tech. I think I said this about Wisconsin. I think Louisville is a 9-3 team with a 10-2 or an 11-1 schedule and goes 10-2. I think Virginia Tech goes 9-3. I've got Louisville beating Virginia Tech, winning the ACC. And I do not have any ACC teams in the playoff either.
So Louisville Orange Bowl.
The Orange Bowl, I believe, has one of the
game?
playoff games, so I don't know. They would be in, let's
Sugar
see,
Bowl.
the Sugar, probably
Chick-fil-A.
not the Rose, or the
Chick-fil-A?
Peach, or the Chick-fil-A.
Also,
Or no, the Peach or something, or the Fiesta, I think.
next
One of those
week,
ones.
yeah, next week have your top 6 bowl games to whatever the hell is possible.
All right.
Marcus.
I have Clemson versus Virginia Tech in the ACC title game. I have Clemson winning that game.
Nathan.
I have Clemson. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon this year and go with Clemson. So I'm sorry for all you Clemson fans out there. You're getting the jinx. And then give me that sweatshirt.
Look at him go! Hokey hey! Give me the turkey. Very warm out.
Give me
Frank
Virginia
Beamer
Tech.
does the hands-up celebration, like when Wake Forest missed that field goal. at the end of
0-0, boys.
regulation.
We got overtime. Nobody
Give me
scored.
Virginia Tech in the title game, and then they lose to Clemson. Take that sweatshirt off. I'm taking Clemson to the playoffs.
Playoffs, Clemson, we're going. So what's that for you, Stacking? Ohio State and Clemson in the playoffs thus far?
Yep.
Charlie has
I
Ohio
only
State.
have
19
Ohio State in the playoffs so far. That,
We've got a 1983 Gator Bowl rematch on the way here. Woody Hayes is going to punch a Clemson linebacker.
oh, just real quick, PlayStation 3 is different than mine. I've got Florida State beating Georgia Tech 44-28 according to PlayStation 3.
There you go.
Nice job.
So that's
Nice
4
job.
straight conference titles for Florida State.
And I have Clemson over God Tech. Only playoff team I'm certain of is Ohio State right now. We'll see what happens with the Clemi next week.
The Clems.
Just imagine we've gone over 2 hours. Just imagine if we had 2 more conferences to go, for Christ's sake. Just imagine.
Oh man,
It's easy. I'll do my other picks quick. I got Iowa State winning the Big 12,
Nice.
and then I've got Mississippi State beating Kentucky to win the SEC.
This is basketball, right?
Yep.
Wait, we're not doing the AAC?
That'll be next
They're
week.
not a Power 5 conference anymore. Although I think
No.
Navy, who's in the American now.
I can't take Tulane to win 7 games.
You can take
You
whoever
can.
you want to win however many games you want. Next week's the SEC, the Big 12, and the other bullshit conference. I'll express my love for Georgia Southern and your bowl game predictions, your big bowl game predictions, Heisman stuff. Do you have another trivia question, sir?
Yes, I do. One more to wrap it up here. Okay, so we're going to go back 25 years.
I remember it well.
1990.
You're
was
up
2
to
years old.
1990.
I was
Looking at these 3 conferences, ACC, Big Ten, and Pac-12.
Ooh, very good.
Now looking ahead to this year, there are 13 new additions from
Those 3 conferences.
those 3 conferences.
So names the teams that are in those conferences now but weren't back then.
Exactly. But here's how it works. There are 13 answers. We will do 4 rounds. You have to give me a team and
From each conference? Oh, in the fucking year they joined the conference?
yes.
Holy balls on a stick.
Each will be worth half a point, and we'll add it all up at the end.
Holy shit. So 12, we'll give 12 answers here. Wow.
Yes.
Look at this. Look at this.
Yes. And there will be 1 left over.
Who wants to start this dandy here?
We'll go backwards this time, so we'll go Travis, Marcus.
Oh, fucking Christ.
Do we have to name the division they joined
No,
also?
nope, just the conference.
Well, those recent teams, if I can figure out what goddamn year they joined. Nebraska, 2012.
So close. Nebraska
Fuck me.
2011.
Oh, these get
So
out
if
of
he
here.
guesses it and didn't get the year right, now nobody can do that one then?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
But he does have a half point for getting Nebraska.
Okay.
They
Gotcha.
joined the Big Ten. Marcus.
I'll take what I believe is the easiest one. Penn State joined the Big Ten in 1990.
They did. I have seen 2 years, though they technically declared in 90. Their first year was 93. So I would have accepted either 90 or 93. So you, though, get a point.
Well, I like the first year they played in the conference.
Right. They did declare, though, in 90. So I will declare 93. Here we'll just go the first season. Charlie.
I will say Rutgers in 2014 went to the Big Ten.
Correct. Travis.
Say Maryland.
I was going to say, since there's one extra one, can I do the extra one real quick now?
No, you cannot.
Okay, well, I think Travis is going to do the one that I was going to say.
Say Maryland, same year, 2014.
Absolutely. To the Big Ten. Marcus.
Utah joined the Pac-12.
No. Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
They did join the Pac-12.
Yes.
And they did it in 2011.
Correct, yep. My mistake.
And then they were joined by Colorado also in 2011 in the Pac-12.
Yep. Look at that, piggybacking off one another.
Not a fan.
There's 6 left here.
Yep, 2 more rounds.
Oh, balls. Louisville, 2014.
Correct.
Ooh, I forgot about Louisville.
Joining the ACC from the Big East.
Louisville's been in a lot of conferences in the last 25 years.
They are conference whores.
I bet of all the answers on your list, Louisville has been in by far the most conferences. Well, maybe not. There's another team, I guess, that could be also, so never mind.
Marcus.
Florida State joined the ACC in 1991.
92 was the year, but you are correct, half a point.
What are the 3 conferences we're doing again?
ACC, Big Ten, and Pac-12, same as what we covered.
Okay, I got to switch this around. I started thinking of Big 12 and SEC schools, so that wastes all the time I did thinking recently. I will say the ACC is one of them we're doing.
Yes.
Okay, I will say Virginia Tech to the ACC in 2004.
Correct.
I will say Miami in 2004.
Correct.
Do you have a scoring update?
You have 3.5 out of a possible.
Am I done?
You are done, yep. Mark
4.5.
2.5 right now with the possibility. Charlie's been perfect thus far with 3.
Oh, pressure's on. Pressure's on. Hildebrand. Look out. Marcus.
Syracuse, the Qs, 2013.
Nice.
2013, you said?
Yep.
That is correct, yep. Charlie?
I will take Pittsburgh in 2013.
You are correct, so you
won it.
You were absolutely perfect. Travis and Marcus very close behind. The only other team that was a possibility was Boston College back in 2005.
It was okay. I knew it was not the same year that Virginia Tech and Miami. I didn't remember which year it was, though.
There you go.
Good question, unique question, something different. You said it'd be different, and it was.
It was.
Oh, very good.
I'm glad that I made sure and clarified on the conferences, because if I would have said Missouri to the SEC in 2012, I don't think I would have gotten any points for it.
No, you would not.
I said, It was a good discussion, a long discussion on the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12 next week, SEC as well. I don't have any bull picks and any miscellaneous shit.
And for all the listeners, you got to recap who everyone picked real quick here.
Well, in case you're just joining us with the Big Ten, everybody liked Ohio State to beat Wisconsin in the title game. David liked Ohio State and Michigan State to make the playoff. In the Pac-12, some variety. Everybody had something different. I liked Oregon over Arizona State. Charlie liked Arizona State over Oregon. Marcus liked USC over Stanford. Nathan liked USC over Oregon. And in the ACC, we all had something, most of us had something different. Marcus and Nathan both had Clemson over Va Tech. I had Clemson over Georgia Tech. Charlie went Louisville over Virginia Tech. So with Charlie,
we all have the Atlantic team winning.
Yes, Charlie had the only one not to pick Clemson. I'm the only one not to pick Va Tech. So SEC next week. Any baseball notes, Trackler? The pick 'em going well. The Twins on the come yet again. Game and a half out. Could be a half game out of that wild card here with about 38 to play. They're in a surge. They're surging. Baltimore's their bitch.
It's nice to see them beat up on somebody for once.
That's good.
And for our departed friend who's not here today, who was written off the Twins over and over, for them to be within shouting distance of the wild card at this stage is good. I am dominating in the picks, and it's getting late. It's getting late, folks. If you're going to make a run,
here's what I'm doing. We're at the racetrack. There's 20 laps to go.
Yep.
You're in first. I'm in second. I'm going to two-tire pit stop.
Yep, is that right? And is there enough gas to get to the end? Do you think we good on fuel here?
Well, we got 20 to go. I got good for about 18 laps, so we're gonna have to conserve some fuel there. Hopefully, there's a few cautions. Yep. If there's a green-white checker, I'm fucked. So that's not
okay.
good.
All I know is when I look through the list of all the teams I haven't picked yet, and I look to see who they play that week, like everyone left I haven't picked as a losing record now. So it's getting tough to pick teams for me now.
I might go out on a small limb here and just say the Angels will not make the playoffs.
They're not looking good now. They seem to have trouble on the road. They're at home now and getting their asses handed to them by Toronto, since Toronto beats everybody.
I said it to you last week, Kriens. I'll say it again this week. The AL East is getting 3 teams, and the NL Central is getting 3 teams into the postseason, which could make up for a very interesting baseball schedule.
If you, how so?
Well, just because you'd only have one West Coast team, that being the Dodgers.
Oh yeah, very good. No, that work. Yeah, that'd be very good. Maybe some 8:30 games there. Maybe. That'd be.
You have to. I mean, you might have to put it like noon 3. You can't start a baseball game at 9. So.
No. Yeah, if you hit on that American League East 3 teams, that'd be good for you. That'd be very good. Toronto, the schedule sets up pretty good for the Twins. They do have at Tampa next week. Then they face my Astros home and away the next 2 weekends with the White Sox sandwiched in between. So they play very well at home. But Texas leading the second wild card, I don't think that's going to last. I'm more concerned about the Angels and Baltimore. And those 2 teams at last glance had I'm going week by week now. They have a tough schedule next week. Toronto plays one of them next week. I believe they play Texas and Toronto. If you like runs, Texas at Toronto should be a lot of fun as far as the runs are concerned. And I think Baltimore has a tough schedule as well. So Twins, a game and a half out now, could be within a half game at the end of the day. So good discussion. College football preview next week, SEC, Big 12, and everybody else. So for Marcus, for Nathan, for Charlie, Travis, 132 next week. We do 133.